Now, my friend, allow your body to rest. There is nothing you must accomplish in this moment. There is nowhere you need to go. There is nothing that requires your effort, nothing that calls for your struggle. If you are lying down, let the weight of your body sink naturally into the surface that supports you. If you are seated, feel the gentle stillness settling through your spine, as though the body is remembering how to be held. Let the muscles soften. Let the shoulders drop without your forcing them. Let the jaw loosen. Let the forehead smooth itself. Do not try to breathe deeply. Simply allow breathing to return to its own quiet rhythm. The breath already knows the way. It has always known the way. And tonight you do not need to manage it. I am not asking you to concentrate. I am not asking you to strive. I am not asking you to wrestle your thoughts into obedience. I am asking you to rest, for the greatest movements in this world are born not from strain, but from surrender. The morning does not struggle to arrive. The sun does not labor to rise. The stars do not wrestle the darkness to shine. All things occur by yielding to their own nature. And you too have a nature that is effortless. There has been planted within you a power so silent, so gentle that it withdraws when you demand, yet rushes forward the moment you relax. This power is not activated by force. It is awakened by trust. So tonight, I invite you not to do anything heroic, not to exert your will, not to prove yourself. I invite you to lay down the burden of effort and to discover what happens when you no longer push against life. The world has taught you that creation requires labor, that success demands strain, that change must be earned through struggle. And perhaps you have believed it for many years. Perhaps you have worn it like a heavy coat. Perhaps you have carried it into bed at night, even when you meant to sleep. But what if this belief has been the very chain that bound you? What if the door you have been seeking opens only when the hand relaxes? There is a quiet law that governs all things. It moves without sound. It never announces itself. Yet it leaves its signature everywhere. Look at the river. It does not shout. It does not hurry. It does not argue with stones. Yet in its gentle patience, it carves mountains. Look at the seed buried beneath the soil. It does not panic. It does not question its worth. It does not demand a timetable. Yet in hidden silence, it becomes the forest. Look at your own heart. It learned its rhythm without instruction. It has beaten faithfully through joy and sorrow alike. It did not ask for guidance. It simply obeyed the law of life. And the same law that breathes through rivers, seeds, and hearts breathes through you. This law does not respond to desperation. It responds to equilibrium. It does not answer panic. It answers poise. It does not move at the command of fear. It moves at the invitation of faith. So now, as your eyelids grow heavy and the mind begins to loosen its grip, you are entering the very state where this law becomes most receptive. You have spent long hours striving, long days hoping, long nights worrying. You have rehearsed the future with anxiety. You have relived the past with regret. But in this moment, you are free of both. This moment requires nothing of you. Let the tongue rest quietly behind the teeth. Let the hands unclench. Let the belly soften. Let the back be supported. You are not being measured. You are not being judged. You are not being tested. You are simply being held by life. The soul does its finest work when the mind steps aside. I have observed this truth all my life. I have seen men exhaust themselves chasing what would have come effortlessly had they only rested in the certainty of possession. I have seen women strain for affection that would have arrived naturally had they first accepted themselves as loved. The world convinces us that only through tension does progress arise. Yet every true breakthrough is preceded by stillness. Even the storm is born from silence. In this quiet space between thoughts, creation begins, not in noise, not in argument, not in desperation, but in the gentle knowing that precedes form. You do not need to make anything happen tonight. You are only invited to allow the mind to sink, allow the breath to slow, allow the thoughts to soften at the edges. If a memory appears, let it drift past like a cloud. If an idea rises, let it pass without resistance. You need not follow any thought. You need not solve anything. This is not the hour for solutions. This is the hour for surrender. When a man abandons the struggle against sleep, sleep claims him. When a woman ceases to chase calm, calm envelops her. You have never fallen asleep by force. You have only fallen asleep by letting go. And creation operates the same way. The world you experience tomorrow is not born from what you force tonight. It is born from what you consent to in stillness. So let us quiet the habit of effort. There is an intelligence within you far older than your worries, far wiser than your doubts. It knows how to breathe. It knows how to heal wounds you cannot name. It knows how to arrange circumstances beyond your planning. This intelligence does not need instruction. It only needs permission. And permission is given through relaxation. In yielding, you rise. In resting, you move. In letting go, you receive. Tonight, you do not strive. Tonight, you consent. Feel the gentle heaviness in the arms, the subtle warmth behind the eyes, the slow, unhurried expansion of the chest. The body knows how to enter silence. Trust the body. It has been practicing surrender every night of your life. There is no urgency here, no deadline, no destination you must reach before morning. The universe does not keep time as you do. It does not rush, it does not wait. It simply unfolds, and you are part of that unfolding. Long before you learned the word effort, you manifested effortlessly. As a child, you believed without calculation. You expected without justification. You assumed without defense. You imagined, and life complied. But then you were taught to question, you were taught to doubt, you were taught to weigh. And so your gifts became bargains. Tonight, you lay those contracts down. You need not persuade the world. You need not plead with fate. You are not required to calculate the path. The power that arranges the stars does not ask for your strategy. It asks only for your trust. And trust is not manufactured. It arises when tension dissolves. So let tension dissolve. If worry whispers, do not fight it. Let it speak, and then let it fade. If anticipation stirs, do not accelerate it. Let it slow itself into quiet confidence. You are safe here. Nothing is required. Nothing is demanded. Men do not drown because the ocean is deep. They drown because they fight the water. So stop fighting. Float. The water knows how to carry you. The night knows how to carry you. Life knows how to carry you. Silence now begins to gather at the edges of your awareness. The thoughts grow softer. The intervals between them lengthen. You are entering the threshold where creation listens most attentively. Here, nothing is demanded. Here, everything is possible. But possibility does not shout. It whispers, and whispers require stillness to be heard. So be still. If sleep comes, let it come. If wakefulness lingers, let it linger. You are not required to control either. You are only required to cease controlling. Tonight is not a night for conquest. It is a night for consent. And in consent, forces older than your striving begin to move. The seed does not awaken by command. It awakens by warmth. The tide does not answer orders. It answers the moon. And your life too answers to something deeper than your effort. It answers to your state of being. And being is easiest when nothing is forced. Tonight you do not strive. Tonight you consent. You may notice now that the mind is growing quieter, not because you are controlling it, but because you are no longer feeding it with urgency. You are no longer asking it to solve life at midnight. You are no longer putting tomorrow on trial. You are allowing yourself to be carried to the borderland where the deeper self is receptive. There is a strange and gentle mercy in this borderland. The outer world fades. The senses become less insistent, and for a little while you are not being chased by the day. You are not being pulled by old stories. You are simply here. And in this simple here, something profound can be accepted without effort. But not yet. Not quite yet. First, the soil must soften before the seed is placed. The water must still before it reflects the stars. Your awareness must quiet before it receives new instruction. So be quiet now. Not by discipline, but by permission. Let go of the idea that you must hold yourself together. Life is holding you now. There is nothing to defend, nothing to fix, nothing to explain, only to rest. And as you rest, something is already happening beneath the surface of your awareness. The old habit of strain is dissolving, and in its place, a gentler force is awakening. A force that does not demand, a force that does not argue with the world, a force that simply knows, in a moment, I will tell you something that will seem almost too simple. And because it is simple, most overlook it. Yet it is the very hinge upon which fortune turns. It is the quiet doorway by which what you call wealth becomes ordinary, normal, natural. And when it becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. There is a way to make wealth feel ordinary. And the moment it feels ordinary, life rearranges. Most people, my friend, pray for money from the state of not having, and the state always wins. I do not say this to condemn you, I say it to free you. For the moment you see it, the struggle begins to loosen, and the old pattern loses its authority. You may have asked for money many times. You may have whispered prayers into the night. You may have begged for relief when the bills felt heavy, when the future felt uncertain, when the world seemed to demand more than you could give. And perhaps you have wondered, why does it not come? Why does it not change? Why does it feel as though my words vanish into silence? Listen closely now, because here is the secret most never dare to face. The prayer itself often carries the very condition you wish to escape. When you ask from the feeling of lack, you are not merely requesting money, you are confirming absence. You are giving life to the state of I do not have, and life, being faithful, mirrors the state, not the request. This is why so many prayers fail, not because there is something wrong with you, not because you are unworthy, not because life is cruel, but because a law is operating, a quiet law, an exact law. And it does not answer emotion as drama. It answers emotion as state. A man may cry for wealth and feel desperation. He may repeat the finest words. He may plead with sincerity. Yet, if beneath all his pleading he feels himself poor, then poverty is the state impressed, and poverty is what continues. Another man may speak very little, yet rest inwardly in the feeling of being supplied, and in time the world will begin to supply him in ways he could not have arranged. The difference is not in volume, it is not in merit, it is in the inner position from which the desire is held. You see, life is not persuaded by your wishes. Life is shaped by your assumptions. Life does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you accept as true. And most of the world has been trained into an invisible habit. They feel their lack, they speak their lack, they rehearse their lack, and then they pray for abundance, as though abundance were a visitor who might someday arrive. But the visitor never comes, because the house is still furnished for lack. The door is still labeled, not yet. The atmosphere still says, I am waiting. And waiting is a state. It is not neutral, it is a state, and the world mirrors it faithfully. So let me speak to you plainly, as one friend to another. If you fall asleep each night with the quiet feeling, I hope, I wish, I wonder if, maybe one day, then you are not planting wealth, you are planting longing. And longing produces more longing, because it is the feeling of not having, it is the posture of reaching, it is the inward confession that the thing desired is not yours now. And yet, the strangest thing is that this whole matter of wealth is not as complicated as the world pretends. It has been wrapped in fear, it has been wrapped in mystery, it has been dressed in rules and hardship and endless toil. Men have been taught that money is earned only by struggle, that security is granted only through labor, that abundance belongs to the few and must be chased like a runaway carriage. But I tell you, this is not the cause. It is only the story. The true cause is always within, and the doorway to that cause is not effort. It is acceptance. Not blind acceptance of circumstances, but acceptance of a new state as natural. This is why I asked you to rest first. This is why I led you into stillness, because the mind that strains cannot accept. The mind that argues cannot receive. The mind that fights for proof cannot enter the state of being. and the state of being is the only thing that creates. Tonight we are not chasing wealth, we are training the subconscious to treat wealth as normal. Do you hear that? Not as a miracle, not as a lucky break, not as a sudden rescue from outside, but as normal, as natural, as expected, as familiar as your own name. Because the subconscious mind, which is the creative womb of life, does not reason as you do. It does not bargain. It does not debate. It does not examine odds. It does not ask, is this likely? It responds only to what feels true. It responds only to what feels natural. If poverty feels natural to you, then poverty continues, even if you hate it. If struggle feels normal, struggle repeats, even if you pray against it. If worry feels familiar, life will offer you reasons to worry, not because it punishes you, but because it mirrors you. But if wealth becomes normal in you, if being supplied becomes familiar, if security becomes your inner climate, then life must reflect that climate outwardly. It cannot help itself. It is law. It is correspondence. It is the mirror responding to the face. Now perhaps, as you hear this, a quiet resistance rises. Not loud perhaps, but subtle. A voice that says, but how can I feel wealth as normal when my world shows me otherwise? Or, how can I accept what is not yet here? Or, am I not deceiving myself? No, my friend, you are not deceiving yourself. You have been deceived already. The deception is that the outer world is the cause. The deception is that you must wait for circumstances to grant you permission to feel secure. The deception is that you must see first in order to believe. This is the great inversion that keeps men and women bound. They say, when I have money, then I will feel relief. But the law reverses it. Feel relief, and money comes as the shadow of that relief. They say, when the debt is paid, then I will sleep. But the law says, sleep in the feeling of being free, and life rearranges itself into freedom. They say, when my account is full, then I will breathe. But the law says, breathe now as one who is already supplied. And the fullness follows as the echo. You have been living as though the mirror must change first, and so you have stood before it, frowning at it, pleading with it, striking it, demanding it show a different image. But the mirror cannot change first. Only the face can. This is why I tell you the secret is not in forcing the world. The secret is in changing what you accept as normal within. For the world is nothing but your inner state made visible. And if that sounds too bold, too forbidden, too dangerous to consider, I understand. For men have been trained to think of themselves as small. They have been trained to believe power belongs elsewhere. They have been taught that God, or life, or fate, or circumstance sits above them, and they must plead for favors. But I am telling you now, very softly, very quietly, because this truth does not need shouting. Your life is not governed by the world. Your world is governed by what you consent to be. Your future is not written by chance. It is written by the feeling you carry into sleep, by the state you dwell in when no one is watching, by the silent assumption you return to again and again. And this is why nighttime matters. This is why the moment before sleep is holy. Because when you approach sleep, the mind that argues grows quiet. The senses that insist on facts soften. The old story loosens its grip, and for a little while you are not imprisoned by yesterday's evidence. You are open. Open to a new feeling. Open to a new normal. Open to the quiet acceptance that changes everything. But do not rush. Do not try to seize the secret with the same hands that have been gripping life too tightly. Let it come to you as gently as sleep itself comes. Tonight, we are not asking, how do I get wealth? We are asking something far more powerful. How do I become the one for whom wealth is ordinary? Because when wealth is ordinary, you do not cling. You do not chase. You do not fear losing. You do not stare at numbers with panic. You move through life with quiet certainty. And that quiet certainty is not a performance. It is a state. And a state, once entered, expresses itself. Now I want you to feel something with me, just for a moment. Not to force it, not to pretend, only to notice the difference. There is a feeling you have known many times in your life, the feeling of course, the feeling of naturally. The feeling of this is simply how it is. Perhaps you have felt it when you knew the kettle would boil, when you knew the morning would arrive, when you knew a familiar person would be there. You did not hope, you did not plead, you did not strain, you simply knew. It was normal. That feeling, that quiet, of course, is the doorway. For the subconscious accepts of course as law. It does not resist what feels normal. It only resists what you still treat as strange. It does not delay what you have already made familiar. It delays what you still approach as distant. And so the whole secret of wealth is not in chasing money. It is in making the state of being supplied so familiar that your inner world stops treating it like a visitor and begins treating it like home. Tonight we begin that gentle return, not with struggle, not with argument, not with force. Tonight you do not strive. Tonight you consent. And in a moment I will take you deeper, not into effort, but into understanding, not into labor, but into the reason this works, not into a dozen techniques, but into the one quiet principle that has changed more lives than any outward method ever could. Stay with me softly. Let the body remain heavy. Let the mind remain loose. For what I am about to share is simple, and because it is simple, it is powerful. My friend, if you will allow me, I will speak to you now, not as a distant voice, but as a man who has walked through fear, through limitation, through the same human doubts you may know so well. I want you to feel, even as you rest, that this is not something I am offering you as a clever thought, or a pleasant encouragement, or a modern fashion of the mind. This is something I have lived, and because I have lived it, I can speak of it quietly, without ornament, without strain. I was born on a small island, Barbados, far from the great cities where men imagine power resides. It was a simple place in many ways, filled with sun and sea and ordinary life. And yet, even there, the same human questions lived in the hearts of people, the same longing for security, the same desire to feel safe in the world, the same secret fear that life is governed by forces outside us. Whether you stand beneath palm trees or beneath stone buildings, the inner drama is the same. When I came to New York, I found a world very different in appearance, but not different in essence. The streets were crowded, the pace was quicker, the voices louder, and yet behind all that noise I could feel what so many were feeling: uncertainty. In those days the world had its own troubles. People spoke of money with a kind of tightness in the chest. They spoke of work and survival and opportunity, as though life were a harsh master handing out favor at random. There were men who had labored for years and still felt the floor could drop beneath them. There were women who carried quiet dread about tomorrow, and they hid it behind brave faces. And I watched this, not as a judge, but as a student of life. I watched the way fear seemed to multiply itself. I watched how one rumor could pass through a neighborhood like wind through dry grass. I watched how people would rehearse the same anxious conversations again and again, and then wonder why their days felt heavy. I watched how they would look outward for cause, blaming the economy, blaming governments, blaming other men, blaming time itself, never realizing that the heaviest chain was often the one they carried silently within. Now, I do not say outer conditions are not real to the senses. Of course they are. If a man's purse is empty, he knows it by sight. If a woman has a stack of bills, she feels it as pressure. But I began to notice something that would not leave me alone. Two people could face the same outward condition and experience entirely different lives. One would be broken by it. Another would somehow move through it and emerge, supplied, helped, lifted, as though an invisible hand had intervened. And that, my friend, is what first stirred the great question in me. What is the cause? Not the cause as the world talks about it. Not the cause that is always out there, but the true cause, the one that determines why one man rises while another remains, why one woman receives help while another finds only closed doors, why one life seems carried while another is dragged. I did not want comfort. I wanted cause. Because if cause could be found, it could be used knowingly. And if it could be used knowingly, then a human being need not live as a victim of shifting conditions. He could live as something else entirely. In those days, people were hungry for hope. Yes, but hope is not enough. Hope can be the sweetest form of delay. A man may hope for years and never move, because hoping often implies not yet. I was not interested in hope. I was interested in law. A law does not depend on mood. A law does not depend on luck. A law does not depend on who likes you or who remembers you. A law works. And so I began to seek, not in the way the world seeks, running from teacher to teacher, as though truth were a commodity, but by watching life itself, by listening to the patterns beneath events, by noticing what preceded what, by observing what happened in people before it happened around them. And then, in time, I encountered a man who altered the entire direction of my life. Many knew him simply as Abdullah. He was not a man who spoke to entertain. He did not flatter the mind. He did not bargain with doubt. He spoke with a kind of calm finality that the fearful mind resents at first, and then, if one is honest, begins to crave. He did not give me comfort. He gave me an instruction. He gave me a way to test. And he insisted, above all, that a man must prove a thing for himself, because until you prove it, it is only another idea floating through the world. There is something inside you, perhaps you have felt it, that grows tired of floating ideas. It wants solidity. It wants certainty. It wants something that does not collapse when the day is difficult. I felt that hunger deeply, and that is why I tested what I was told. I did not merely admire it. I did not merely repeat it. I tested it. When I tell you, I tested it, I mean I took it into my own life where it mattered. Not as a game, not as a parlor trick, but as a serious experiment. I watched what happened when I assumed something inwardly that the world denied. I watched what happened when I held to an inner acceptance in spite of appearances. I watched what happened when I changed the inner posture first and refused to bow to the evidence of the senses. And then I proved it, not once, not twice, but again and again. Now, as you listen to me, I want you to understand something very gently. I am not asking you to believe me. I am not asking you to accept words, because they sound pleasing in the night. I am telling you what I discovered, so that you may test it too, because the day you test it and see it move in your world, you will never again feel entirely at the mercy of circumstance. I began to speak of these things, not in the noisy ways of modern life, but quietly, in rooms where people gathered, because they were weary of the old explanations. They were weary of being told that life is chance, weary of being told they must struggle for every inch of security, weary of being told that wealth is for the few, and worry is for the many. Some came skeptical, some came desperate, some came curious, but all came with the same silent ache. Is there something else? Is there a cause I have not been taught? Is there a way to stop living at the mercy of events? And I would tell them, softly, what I tell you now. Do not look at the surface and call it the cause. The surface is late. It is always the after effect. It is the echo. The world of appearances is like a shadow on the wall, and to fight a shadow is to exhaust yourself, because the shadow has no life of its own. So what is the life? What is the substance? What is the thing that casts the shadow? I will not yet name it fully, not because it is secret, but because I want you to feel it approaching in your own awareness. I want you to recognize it as something you have always lived with, something you have always used, even when you did not know its name. You have had experiences, small perhaps, but real, where you felt something was going to happen, and it did. You have had moments when you feared something, and you watched it take shape. You have had days when you carried a mood of expectation, and life seemed to open like a flower. You have had other days when you carried a mood of defeat, and even simple things felt heavy. What was that? It was not luck, It was not coincidence. It was not a mischievous universe playing games with you. It was something within you moving outward, expressing itself as the conditions of your day. And the reason most never master it is because they never stop to notice that it is happening. They blame the day and the day repeats. They blame other people and other people reflect their blame. They blame money, and money becomes a symbol of their fear. They never trace the stream back to its spring. But I traced it, and I found that the spring was not outside. I watched how a man could carry within himself the feeling of poverty, and even when money came, he would lose it, or mishandle it, or find new reasons to fear. And I watched another man carry within himself the feeling of being supplied, and even when a door closed, another opened, as though life itself insisted on supporting him. I watched women who felt unchosen draw indifference even from those who meant well, and I watched women who felt themselves cherished receive kindness as though the world had been waiting to give it. And in every case, the outer world was not the initiator. It was the witness. This is why I say, I watched it. I watched it in the lives of people who had no interest in philosophy, people who wanted results, people who had suffered enough to be honest. And when honest people test a law, the law reveals itself quickly, because honesty removes the hidden contradiction. I proved it through my own experience. I proved it through the experience of those who dared to apply it. I saw money come in ways no one could have planned. I saw positions change, relationships heal, doors open, entire fortunes reverse, not by struggle, but by an inner acceptance that preceded the outer shift. Now I know there is a part of you that wants me to rush forward and tell you the method at once. The mind loves methods. It loves steps. It loves the feeling of doing something. But I asked you at the beginning to rest, because the greatest obstruction to this law is the habit of strain. The law I speak of does not respond to strain. Strain is evidence of disbelief. Strain is a confession that you do not yet accept the thing you desire. You are trying to force life to comply while inwardly remaining unconvinced. And life, being faithful, mirrors the unconvinced state. So tonight, my friend, I am preparing you for something deeper than technique. I am preparing you for the recognition that will make technique effortless. Because once you see the principle clearly, the practice becomes natural. And when practice becomes natural, the subconscious accepts it without resistance. There is a reason I keep speaking of normal. There is a reason I keep returning to that word. Because the subconscious does not debate what is normal. It does not resist what is familiar. It does not delay what you have already accepted as your natural condition. And wealth, to most people, is not normal. It is treated as distant, strange, rare, for other people, for the lucky, for the chosen, for the bold, for the gifted. And as long as wealth is treated as strange, it remains outside the house, not because it cannot enter, but because the house is not prepared to receive it as natural. So when I speak to you tonight, I speak as one who has watched men change the furniture of their inner house, and then watched life bring to them what matched that new arrangement. I speak as one who has seen the same principle work in the small and the great. I speak as one who is not guessing. I tested it. I watched it. I proved it. And because I proved it, I can tell you this with quiet certainty. The outer world is not as solid as it seems. It is obedient. It is responsive. It is shaped by something within you that you have been using all your life, often without knowing. When you understand this, truly understand it, not as a phrase, but as a lived recognition, you will begin to feel a kind of freedom rise in you. Not the freedom of doing whatever you please in the world, but the freedom of knowing you are not trapped by appearances. The freedom of knowing that you can change the inner cause and watch the outer effect follow. But we will not rush. We will take this gently, the way sleep comes, the way dawn comes, the way a seed becomes a tree. In a moment, I will take you to the edge of the greatest reversal of all, the place where people stop begging life for wealth and begin to inhabit the state that produces it. Not by force, by acceptance. And when you begin to accept, even faintly, that wealth can become normal, that being supplied can be your natural condition, that security can be your inner climate. Something in you will relax even more deeply. Because the mind strains only when it believes it must fight for what it wants. The moment it senses that creation is lawful, the strain begins to fade. So stay with me softly. Let the body remain at rest. Let the eyelids be heavy. Let the breath be unhurried. You are not trying to learn with the sharp mind right now. You are allowing something to sink into you. And what sinks into you in this drowsy quiet does not remain as an idea. It becomes a state, and the state becomes your world. Now we come to the great reversal, my friend, the turning point that changes everything if you will allow it to sink in quietly. All your life, you have been taught to look at the world first, and then decide what you are. You have been trained to let the outer scene dictate the inner feeling. If the purse is light, you feel anxious. If the bill arrives, you feel pressure. If the world looks uncertain, you tighten within yourself and call that prudence. If the economy trembles, you tremble with it and call that realism. If another man has authority over your wages, you surrender authority over your state and call that necessity. But this is the inversion. This is the great mistake. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The outer world is not the cause. It is the effect. It is the mirror. You are the face, and there is no change in the mirror until the face changes. Now I know how simple that sounds, and because it is simple, the mind may be tempted to dismiss it. Yet, it is the very foundation upon which all manifestation rests. I have watched men try to change the mirror all their lives. They curse the reflection. They strike it. They polish it. They blame it. They rearrange it. They move from place to place, job to job, relationship to relationship, hoping the mirror will finally show something kinder. And the mirror continues to reflect, because it cannot do otherwise. A mirror has no choice. It reflects what stands before it. And the world, though it looks solid, though it feels independent, though it seems to have its own will, is far more like a mirror than you have ever been taught. It reflects, it echoes, it confirms, it outpictures. So I say to you gently, stop wrestling the mirror, leave it alone, turn inward, and change the face. When you understand this, you stop looking at money as an external tyrant. You stop treating circumstances as rulers. You stop placing power in luck, in statistics, in employers, in markets, in time. You stop saying, if only the world would change, then I could relax. Because you begin to see that relaxation is the cause, and the world is the echo. Now hear me carefully. I am not telling you to ignore practical matters in the day. I am telling you to stop giving them the throne. A bill may arrive, yes. A bank account may show numbers, yes. A market may shift, yes. But these are not cause. They are the delayed printout of former states. They are yesterday's assumptions made visible. If you treat them as cause, you will keep recreating them, because you will keep reacting from the same state. You will look at lack and feel lack, and in feeling lack, you have returned to the state that produced it. You have pressed the same seal into the wax once again. But if you learn to see the outer as effect, then you can look at it without bowing to it. You can look at it and say inwardly, this is only the mirror. I will change the face. And the moment you change the face, the mirror must, in time, show a different image. This is why I insist upon one truth above all: the cause of your life is consciousness. I do not mean your thoughts as passing sparks. I mean your consciousness as a state, as the awareness of being, as the quiet feeling of who you are. The world does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your state. It responds to your identity. It responds to the feeling you return to when you are alone, when no one is watching, when you are not performing for anyone. Because that is what you truly are assuming. And assumption is creative. Now connect this to money. Because money is where so many become frightened, and fear is always the quickest way to give power away. When a person is worried about money, he begins to feel as though his life is in the hands of something outside himself. He feels as though he must plead with the world. He must chase opportunity. He must beg for hours, for wages, for approval. He feels small. And in feeling small, he creates a life that continues to make him small. But I tell you, the economy is not the cause. Your boss is not the cause. Chance is not the cause. Luck is not the cause. These are only the names men give to the mirror when they do not understand the face. If you believe the economy is the cause, then your inner state will constantly bow to headlines and rumors and fear. If you believe your employer is the cause, you will live inwardly as dependent. If you believe luck is the cause, you will live inwardly as powerless, and the world will mirror that powerlessness faithfully. But the moment you accept that the cause is within you, something begins to change at once. Not always in the bank account immediately, not always in the outer picture overnight, but in you. In the only place where real change ever begins, the tension loosens, the desperate grasp softens, the inner voice becomes quieter. The mind stops screaming at tomorrow, and that softening is not weakness. It is the first sign that the face is changing, for when you stop treating the outer as cause, you stop reacting. And when you stop reacting, you stop replanting the old seed. Now there is one sentence I want you to let sink into you very slowly, because it is the first great click, the first hinge upon which the rest of our journey turns. Your subconscious does not respond to your wants. It responds to what feels normal. You may want wealth with all your heart. You may want relief. You may want a life where money is not a daily ache in the chest. But if wealth still feels strange, if relief still feels unfamiliar, if being supplied still feels like something that happens to other people, then the subconscious will continue to express what is familiar to it. The subconscious does not create from desire. It creates from acceptance. It creates from naturalness. It creates from the state you call this is simply how it is. And this is why people can pray for years and still remain in lack. Their desire is sincere, but their inner normal is unchanged. They pray for abundance and then return to the inner speech of scarcity. They ask for prosperity and then fall asleep in anxiety. They hope for freedom and then spend the day rehearsing limitation. The subconscious receives the rehearsal, not the hope. So you must understand that your work is not to persuade the world. Your work is not to convince the bank. Your work is not to calculate odds or argue with circumstance. Your work is to make a new state feel normal. Because the moment it feels normal, it begins to express itself. Now perhaps you wonder, how can something feel normal if I have not yet seen it? That question reveals the old training. It reveals the old order. Seeing first, then believing. But that old order is exactly what keeps you bound. The new order is to accept first, to feel first, to inhabit first, and then to see. This is why I spoke to you of the borderland of sleep, because it is the easiest hour to accept what the day would argue against. It is the hour when the outer senses grow quiet. It is the hour when the mind stops pleading for proof. It is the hour when you can slip into a new normal without the old voice shouting, impossible. So the great reversal is simply this. You do not wait for the mirror to change. You change the face. You do not wait for the world to grant you relief. You enter relief. You do not wait for money to make you feel secure. You feel secure and allow money, in its own way, to become the shadow of that security. Now let me give you an image that you can feel. Imagine a man standing before a cold mirror in a room. His face is drawn and tired. He frowns at the mirror and says, smile. But the mirror does not smile. He grows angry. He commands louder, smile. The mirror does not obey. He blames the mirror. He strikes it. He complains about it. He tells others how cruel the mirror is. And still it reflects his frown. Then he does the only intelligent thing. He stops speaking to the mirror and turns his attention to his own face. He gently relaxes his mouth. He softens the eyes. He allows a smile to rise. And instantly, without effort, without delay, without debate, the mirror reflects the smile. That is the law. The outer world is the mirror. Your consciousness is the face. And money, in this sense, is not a cause. It is a reflection. Now do not misunderstand me. I am not telling you to pretend that you have money in your hand when you do not. I am telling you to assume the state that money would produce in you, until that state becomes natural. For what is money truly to the human being? It is not paper, it is not numbers, it is not a thing of itself. Money represents something far more personal. It represents relief, it represents freedom, it represents ease, it represents safety, it represents choice, it represents the quiet dignity of not being pressed by fear. So if money represents relief, then relief is the state, and the state is the cause. And money, or its equivalent, must follow the state as the mirror follows the face. This is why I tell you, the subconscious does not understand later. It does not understand someday. It does not understand I hope. It understands only I am. It understands only now. And it responds to what is normal now. So tonight, we are not going to chase money. We are going to change what is normal in you. We are going to soften the inner posture that has been trained into lack. We are going to quiet the inner speech that has been rehearsing scarcity. We are going to introduce a new normal so gently, so tenderly, that the subconscious accepts it without resistance. Because when the subconscious accepts a thing as normal, it does not treat it as a miracle. It treats it as reality. And reality must be expressed. Now stay with me in this softness. Let the body remain heavy. Let the breath remain slow. Let your mind not strain to grasp every word. You are not taking notes. You are allowing a state to seep in. The deepest truths do not enter by force. They enter by feeling. In a moment, I will take you further into the sacred name you have been using all your life without knowing its power. The name that determines your world more than any wage, any market, any chance, any employer. And when you understand what you have been doing with that name, you will understand why money has sometimes felt like an enemy. And you will also understand how to make it feel like something far simpler, something ordinary. Now we come to something so simple, so near, so constantly used, that most people never pause long enough to see its power. And because they do not see it, they spend their lives speaking spells over themselves without knowing they are doing it. I speak of the name, not a name written in stone, not a title carried in temples, not a distant word used only in solemn moments. I speak of the only name you cannot avoid, the only name you speak more often than any other, the only name that follows you into every room and every circumstance. The name is I am. When Moses, in the ancient story, asked for the name of God, the answer was not a grand description. It was not a distant label. It was not the kind of name men carve into monuments. The answer was simply, I am that I am. Tell them, I am has sent you. Now I do not ask you to accept this as history. I ask you to notice it as experience. You may doubt many things, but you cannot doubt this. You are aware that you are, before you describe your condition, before you name your troubles, before you speak of money or time or age, there is first the silent awareness of being. That awareness is I am. And here is the first great key. The I am in you is not a phrase. It is the creative center of your life. You have been using it every day. You have been joining it to states every day. And the world has been faithfully reflecting the states you join to it. Every time you say I am, you are choosing a state. Not always aloud. Often silently. Often in a whisper of feeling. Often in the unguarded inner speech that runs beneath your day. But every time you say I am, you are selecting an identity. And identity is creative. Identity is the face before the mirror. Now I want you to feel this gently, without fear, without blame. For the moment you see it, you are already freer than you were a moment ago. This is not about guilt. This is about power. Consider how easily a man can take the sacred name and join it to a condition he does not want. He wakes in the morning and says, I am tired. He does not think of it as a creative act. He thinks he is describing a fact. But he is doing more than describing. He is choosing a state, and the state organizes the day around itself. A woman looks at a letter, a bill, a number on a page, and she says inwardly, I am behind. She may not even speak it aloud, but she feels it, and feeling is the language of the subconscious. In that moment she has joined the name I am to behind, and the day will echo that behindness. Events will crowd, time will press, delays will appear, not as punishment, but as correspondence. A person says, I am barely managing, I am always struggling, I am unlucky. I am not the kind of person who has money. These sound like confessions, like harmless statements of reality, but they are not harmless, they are decrees. They are the seeds spoken into the soil of the subconscious. And the subconscious does not argue. It does not say, are you sure? It does not say, do you want to keep that? It accepts the feeling as truth and begins to outpicture it as experience. This is why the ancients spoke of taking the name in vain. They did not mean a mere outward profanity. They meant the inner act of joining the creative name I am to states of weakness, fear, and limitation. Then watching those states become flesh. But here is the tender part. The same principle that has been used unconsciously can be used consciously. The same name can be hallowed. The same I am can be joined to a new garment. And when it is joined, the world must wear that garment in your experience. So I tell you now, with warmth, not with severity, you must become gentle and deliberate with your I am. Not anxious, not strained, not superstitious, just aware. Because the I am is always creating. It never stops. It is creating while you work, while you speak, while you rest, while you sleep. It is creating with every assumption you accept as true. Now connect this to normal, because normal is the subconscious signature of what you have accepted. Normal is what you no longer question. Normal is what you feel is simply yours. Normal is what your body expects without tension. If you have long joined I am to struggle, then struggle feels normal. If you have long joined I am to shortage, then shortage feels normal. If you have long joined I am to worry, then worry feels normal. And the subconscious, being faithful, will keep giving you what matches that normal. But if you begin to join I am to being supported, then support will begin to appear as normal. If you join I am to being supplied, then supply begins to feel familiar. If you join I am to safety, then safety becomes your climate, and the world will mirror the climate you live in. This is why I do not tell you merely to desire wealth. Desire alone can remain longing. I tell you to claim a state. I tell you to change the name you call yourself by in feeling. Listen to the difference in your own body when you hear these phrases. I am struggling. Even if you do not say it, you may feel the contraction it produces. The shoulders tighten, the chest narrows, the breath becomes shallow, the mind becomes vigilant, the body becomes braced. That is a state, and a state once entered has its own world. Now hear another. I am supported. Notice how the body softens. Notice how the chest widens. Notice how the breath slows. Even if you have no outer evidence yet, the feeling itself carries a different climate. That climate is a new seed. I am behind. Feel the rush, the pressure, the sense of being chased. Now another, I am supplied. Feel the quietness, the relief, the absence of chase. I am barely. That phrase alone is a door to a world of tightness. Now another, I am safe. Do you feel how the nervous system begins to uncoil? This is not imagination as fantasy. This is imagination as state selection. This is the I am choosing its garment. And now you begin to see why money has been so difficult for so many. It is not because money is hard, it is because the I am has been clothed in states that repel it. States of fear, states of unworthiness, states of struggle, states of not enough. Men often say, I want money, but they live in the inner confession, I am not enough. And the world mirrors not enough with mathematical precision. Not enough time, not enough pay, not enough help, not enough opportunity, not enough ease. But when you change the confession, you change the mirror. Now, I must be careful here, because the mind loves to turn this into strain. It loves to say, very well, I will repeat, I am wealthy 1,000 times. And then it repeats it as a beggar repeats, with anxiety, with desperation, with the hidden feeling that it is not true. And then it wonders why nothing changes. My friend, the I am is not persuaded by vain repetition. The subconscious is not moved by empty sound. The subconscious is moved by what feels natural. So the goal is not to shout, I am wealthy into the night. The goal is to enter a state where being supplied feels normal. The goal is to join I am to the feeling tone of wealth, relief, safety, ease, until the body itself begins to accept it as familiar. This is why I asked you to listen while you sleep. This is why the title of our talk is not merely about wealth, but about the subconscious accepting wealth as normal. For what the subconscious accepts as normal, it expresses without effort. And now, as you lie there, perhaps half awake, perhaps drifting, I want you to consider how often you have used I am against yourself without meaning to. How often you have spoken it as a verdict rather than a choice. I am too old for this. I am not good with money. I am always the one who. I am never the one who. These are not harmless habits. They are selections of state, and the world, which is the mirror, has reflected them faithfully. So faithfully that you may have mistaken the reflection for fate. But fate is not fixed. Fate is the shadow of state. Change the state, and fate must change. Now, I promised you something earlier. I said there is a way to make wealth feel ordinary. And when it feels ordinary, life rearranges. We are not yet at the moment where I give you the exact phrase to carry into sleep. Not yet. Because I want the phrase to land in the right soil. I want it to be received, not recited. So for now, I will only plant curiosity in you. I will let you feel the mystery without grabbing it too quickly. Before you sleep, I will give you a sentence, simple, quiet, without strain, that speaks in the only language the subconscious understands. It will not be a demand. It will not be a plea. It will be a gentle decree of normality. And if you take it into the borderland of sleep with feeling, it will begin to change what feels ordinary to you. And when what feels ordinary changes, the outer world must follow, because the mirror cannot do otherwise. But before I give you that sentence, you must understand one thing very clearly. The I am does not create what you want. It creates what you accept yourself to be. So tonight we are not begging for wealth. We are not pleading with circumstance. We are not asking the world to be kinder. We are changing the state of I am, so that the world must reflect a new identity. And this is why people who truly understand this law become calm. Not because they have all the money in their hands in this very moment, but because they have changed the cause, they have changed the face. And once the face is changed, the mirror's change is only a matter of time. Now stay with me gently. Let these words sink. Not into the busy mind, but into the feeling beneath. You are not trying to memorize. You are allowing the I am to become aware of itself. Because when the I am awakens, it stops begging. It starts assuming. It stops calling wealth distant. It begins to call wealth normal. And that is the beginning of freedom. Now, my friend, I will give you the how, but I will give it to you gently. For the mind has been trained to turn every truth into effort. It hears a principle and immediately asks, how do I do it perfectly? It turns the simplest act into a burden. And then, when it feels heavy, it assumes the law is difficult. And in that assumption, it makes it so. So I will not present this as a cold instruction, but as a quiet doorway you are already approaching each night. You have been entering the state I speak of all your life, without knowing its name. Every time you drift towards sleep, you pass through a borderland, neither fully awake nor fully asleep. The body grows heavy. The senses soften. The sharp edges of reasoning dissolve. The world outside becomes distant. And in that gentle interval, the subconscious stands open, receptive, undefended, like soil after rain. This is what I call the state akin to sleep. It is the most fertile moment of your day, not because it is dramatic, but because it is natural. In the day, your mind argues. It compares. It protests. It says, that cannot be true. It demands proof before it will allow you to feel secure. But as you approach sleep, those arguments lose their strength. The guard at the door relaxes. The old story loosens its grip. And whatever you accept in that interval sinks more deeply than anything you force in the bright hours of waking. Now understand this. The subconscious is not moved by your effort. It is moved by your feeling of reality. It is moved by what you accept as true. It receives impressions and expresses them. It does not weigh them. It does not judge them. It does not examine whether the thing is likely. It simply takes what is impressed upon it and gives it form. So the question becomes simple. What will you impress upon it tonight? Most people do it unconsciously. They drift into sleep rehearsing the day's failures. They replay the worry. They count the bills in their mind. They feel the dread of tomorrow. They whisper without words. I hope it gets better. I don't know what I'll do. I can't keep up. And then they wake and meet the very world they planted, because they planted it. But you are listening now because you are ready to plant differently. Not to get something from the world, but to become someone within yourself. Not to get it, to be it. Not someday. Now, let me bring you into the practice with the same softness you already carry in your body. Tonight, when you are ready to sleep, do not make it a struggle. Do not set it up like an examination you might fail. Do not approach it with fear, as though one wrong thought could ruin everything. That is not how this works. The law is not fragile, it is faithful. Simply let yourself become still. Let the body grow comfortable. Let the lights dim, if they are not already dim. Let the room be quiet, and then, as you lie there, allow your attention to rest upon a single simple fact. You are going to feel as though your desire is already fulfilled. You will not try to force the outer world to change tonight. You will enter the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the feeling is the secret. Now, many people complicate this by trying to imagine a long story. They try to see every step, how the money will come, who will bring it, what phone call will arrive, what letter will appear. They try to build the bridge of incidents with their conscious mind, and the conscious mind grows tired and anxious because it cannot do that work. But you must not build the bridge. Your only task is to occupy the end. So I ask you to choose a scene. Short, simple, natural. That would be true if wealth were already normal for you. Not the process of getting it, the fact of having it. This is the difference between thinking of the end and thinking from the end. Thinking of the end keeps it distant. Thinking from the end makes it present. Thinking of is watching from outside. Thinking from is living inside. So choose one tiny moment that implies the whole thing is done. It may be as simple as opening a letter and seeing the words paid in full and feeling the relief wash through you. It may be seeing a bank statement that implies abundance and feeling no surprise, only calm, because it is normal. It may be hearing the voice of a friend saying, I'm so happy for you, everything worked out, and feeling the quiet certainty that yes, of course it did. It may be the sensation of writing a check or paying for something without the old tightening in the chest because you are supplied. Keep it brief. Keep it natural. Keep it something that would be true if wealth were already your normal. And now, when you have chosen that scene, you enter the state akin to sleep. You do not rush. You do not strain. You allow drowsiness to gather. The body becomes heavy. The breathing becomes slow. The mind becomes less sharp. You are hovering at the edge, not fighting sleep, not chasing sleep, simply drifting toward it. In that drowsy interval, you begin to enact your scene, not as a spectator watching a picture on a wall, but as the one who is there. See through your own eyes. Hear through your own ears. Feel with your own hands. If the scene is holding a paper, feel the paper. If the scene is a voice, hear the tone. If the scene is relief, let the body soften into that relief. Let the shoulders drop, as though the burden is gone. Let the breath deepen as though the fear has ended. Let the face soften as though you have nothing to defend against. Then repeat the scene gently, again and again, but not with anxiety, not with forcing, like rocking a child to sleep. Like listening to the same quiet melody until it becomes soothing, until it becomes familiar. Repeat it until it begins to feel normal. And here is the true sign you have done it. The scene no longer feels like effort, it begins to feel like memory. It begins to feel like something that simply is. You may find yourself smiling without trying. You may find the body responding as though it were already true. You may feel a quiet gratitude rising, not forced, not practiced, but natural, because the state feels real. That is the moment the seed is planted. You do not need to keep going for an hour. You do not need to exhaust yourself. The subconscious is not impressed by length, it is impressed by acceptance. A single imaginal act, felt with reality in the state akin to sleep, is more powerful than 1,000 strained affirmations in the day. And if you fall asleep while you are doing it, that is not failure, that is perfection. Because what you carry into sleep is what the subconscious carries into expression. Now perhaps you will say, but Neville, what if my mind wanders? What if doubt comes in? Of course it will, at first. The old habit does not disappear in one night. But do not fight it. Do not argue with it. Simply return, softly, to your scene. Let doubt pass like a cloud, and come back to the feeling of already having, not to get it, to be it, not someday. Now, you are not trying to convince the senses. You are impressing the subconscious, and the subconscious speaks in feeling. It speaks in mood. It speaks in the quiet certainty that this is natural. So the scene must be chosen not to excite you, but to naturalize you. The goal is not to feel a wild thrill that fades by morning. The goal is to feel the calm of ownership, the quiet certainty of being supplied, the ease of someone for whom money is not a terrifying subject, but an ordinary flow. This is why I say we are training the subconscious to accept wealth as normal. When wealth is normal, you do not beg for it. You do not chase it. You do not fear it. You do not worship it. You simply live from it. Now let me make this even clearer with a small example, for the mind learns best when it sees the law in miniature. I once suggested a very simple experiment to people who doubted imagination. I told them, for 3 nights, as you fall asleep, imagine you are climbing a ladder. Feel your hands on the rungs. Feel your feet stepping upward. Do it until it feels real. Then I said, in the day, say to yourself, I will not climb a ladder. And do you know what happened? Again and again, those people found themselves on ladders, without planning it, without seeking it, without intending it. They would laugh, sometimes in astonishment, because the event arrived naturally. It did not come as lightning from the sky. It came as an ordinary circumstance that compelled the act. This is how the law works. It is not theatrical, it is faithful. And if imagination can bring a ladder into your life, it can bring money too. The subconscious does not measure difficulty. It does not say, a ladder is easy, but wealth is hard. That distinction belongs only to your reasoning mind. To the subconscious, all are impressions, all are seeds, all bear fruit after their kind. So do not ask tonight whether your desire is large. Do not ask whether it is likely. Do not ask how the world could possibly rearrange itself. Your job is not to solve the how. Your job is to live in the end. And once you live in the end, once you enter the state and make it feel normal, the world begins, quietly, inevitably, to build a bridge. You will not see it being built. You will not hear the hammering. You will not know which incident is the first stone. You will simply find yourself moving through days that begin to shift. A conversation happens. A letter arrives. A meeting occurs. A door opens. A burden lifts. An opportunity appears. Something that once seemed impossible begins to feel ordinary, because it is now your normal, and you will call it chance. But it will not be chance. It will be obedience. This is why I tell you to be gentle with yourself. Do not strain. Do not force images until you are weary. Seek, instead, choose the scene. Enter the borderland. Feel it as real. Let it become normal. Fall asleep in it, if you can. Then rise tomorrow without digging up the seed. Do not check the outer world with anxious eyes, as though you are inspecting the soil every hour. That is the quickest way to return to the old state. If you have planted the seed, trust it. The seed does not grow faster because you stare at the ground. It grows because the soil is faithful, and the subconscious is faithful. Tonight, if you will do this gently, the world will begin to construct the bridge, not by your effort, by your acceptance, not because you begged, because you became, not to get it, to be it, not someday. Now let us come to the very heart of what you came for, my friend. Not the chase, not the struggle, not the fever of wanting, but the quiet art of making wealth feel normal. I want you to hear me slowly here, because the mind has been trained by the world to misunderstand what wealth truly feels like. It thinks wealth feels like fireworks. It thinks wealth feels like constant excitement, constant celebration, constant proof. It thinks wealth must feel like a sudden rush, a loud victory, a dramatic turning of fate that everyone can see. And because people believe that is what wealth feels like, they keep waiting for a feeling that never comes, and they miss the real doorway. Wealth, when it is truly yours, does not feel like a storm. It feels like a settled sky. It feels like relief. It feels like steadiness. It feels like quiet safety. It feels like the absence of that sharp inner tightening you have known for so long. Do you remember the last time you solved a problem that had been pressing on you? Not a tiny problem, but one that had been sitting on your chest for days. Perhaps you feared a bill you did not know how to pay. Perhaps you worried about a cost that was coming. Perhaps you lay awake and turned the matter over and over, and it seemed there was no clean answer. And then, perhaps through some simple resolution, perhaps through help, perhaps through a surprise, perhaps through timing, the problem was solved. What did you feel in that moment? You did not feel wild excitement for hours. You felt something simpler. You felt a long exhale. You felt a loosening. You felt the shoulders drop. You felt the chest open. You felt the belly soften. You felt the mind stop running in circles. That is the feeling tone of being supplied. That is the feeling your subconscious recognizes as normal wealth. Not shouting, not strain, not even celebration. Relief, ease, quiet certainty. And I tell you, the subconscious accepts the feeling of relief as an instruction. It accepts the feeling of safety as a command. It accepts the feeling of it is handled as a decree. And once that feeling becomes familiar to you, life will begin to mirror it with the same faithfulness with which it once mirrored worry. Most people try to manifest wealth by imagining a great sum and forcing themselves to feel thrilled. But thrill is unstable. Thrill rises and collapses. Thrill is like lightning. It is bright, and then it is gone. The subconscious does not build a life on lightning. It builds a life on climate. It builds a life on what feels like home. So tonight, and every night you listen, I am not teaching you to manufacture excitement. I am teaching you to enter the climate of being supplied so gently that the body accepts it as ordinary. Because the body is the doorway into the subconscious. The subconscious is not convinced by arguments. It is convinced by how you feel when you are no longer trying. Wealth normal, true wealth normal, is not the feeling of I got something. It is the feeling of I am supported. It is the feeling of I am not in danger. It is the feeling of I do not have to brace myself. It is the feeling of there is room. Room in the mind. Room in the breath. Room in the day. Room to say yes to life without fear that the bottom will fall out. Now let me speak to you as though I am sitting near you in the quiet of evening, as one friend speaking to another who has carried too much for too long. I know how people carry money fear. They carry it like a small, hard stone in the pocket. It is always there. Even when they are laughing, it is there. Even when they are eating, it is there. Even when they are trying to sleep, it is there. It presses on them invisibly. It makes them measure everything. It makes them anticipate disappointment. It makes them guard themselves against ordinary life. And because the fear is familiar, it becomes normal. And because it becomes normal, Life continues to provide reasons to keep it. But the moment you begin to make relief familiar, the fear loses its throne. It may still visit, yes. Old habits do not vanish in one night, but they no longer rule. They no longer feel like the truth, they feel like a memory passing through. So what does it mean to make wealth normal? It means you begin to live inwardly, as though you are safe. Not safe in the abstract, but safe in the very places where you used to tighten. Let me paint these places gently for you, because they are simple, and simplicity is the secret. There is the moment you hear a knock at the door or the bell and you wonder, who is it? Is it trouble? Is it someone asking? Is it something I cannot handle? In a world of worry, even small sounds can carry tension. But in the state of being supplied, a knock is only a knock. The body does not brace. The mind does not rush forward to imagine problems. There is a calm neutrality. I can handle what comes. That is wealth normal. There is the moment you go to the letterbox, or you take letters from the table, and you feel that subtle dread before you even open anything. Not because you know what is inside, but because you have trained yourself to expect pressure. You have trained yourself to believe that the post often brings burdens. So the body tightens before the mind even reads a word. That tightening is a state, and the state is the cause. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine opening the letterbox without dread, not with foolish blindness, but with quiet steadiness. You pick up the letters and you feel nothing sharp. You feel calm. You feel ordinary. You feel as though whatever is there is handled. You are not being hunted by life. You are not being tested by paper. You are not being measured by numbers. You are supported. So the letters are simply information, not a threat. That calm is wealth normal. There is the moment you sit at a table and you look at an account book, or you look at figures, or you count costs. In worry, the mind becomes small. It becomes tight. It begins to bargain. It begins to fear mistakes. It begins to shame itself. It says, how did I end up here? Why can't I get ahead? What if I never escape this? Those questions are not neutral. They are prayers of identity. They impress the subconscious with struggle, and struggle becomes the normal echo. But in wealth normal, you look at numbers with calm eyes. You may still notice them. You may still be practical, but you do not tremble. The numbers do not define you. They do not command your mood. They do not decide your worth. You glance, you understand, and you feel the quiet certainty. I am supplied, I am guided, I am supported. This will work out. And because you hold that state as normal, life begins to rearrange itself to confirm it. This is what I mean when I tell you wealth is not merely money. Wealth is the state of being unthreatened by money. And that state can be entered now. Now the mind may protest and say, but Neville, is that not pretending? Is that not ignoring reality? My friend, you have been pretending for years already. You have been pretending that fear is wisdom. You have been pretending that tension protects you. You have been pretending that worry is necessary. Yet worry has never paid a bill. Worry has never opened a door. Worry has never brought supply. Worry has only trained the body to expect more reasons to worry. So tonight we stop pretending that fear is helpful. We allow ourselves quietly to step into the state that creates help. Wealth normal is, above all, a nervous system that no longer lives as if it is being chased. That is why you must not confuse wealth normal with excitement. Excitement is still a form of chase. It is still a reaching. It is still a spike. But wealth normal is a steady ground. Do you know what a wealthy person often says without thinking? Not always aloud, but in the feeling beneath their life. They feel, of course it will be handled. Of course there will be enough. Of course help will come. Of course the situation will resolve. Of course. That of course is the signature of normality. And normality is what the subconscious obeys. So when you imagine wealth, do not chase a feeling of fireworks. Chase the feeling of course. Let me show you how this feels in ordinary scenes, the kind that matter most to the human heart. Imagine you are in a shop, and you pick up something simple you need. In a state of lack, even this becomes charged. The mind begins to calculate. The body tightens. There is that little sting in the chest. Can I? Should I? What if I can't? And often the decision is not made by reason, but by fear. Even when the cost is small, the fear is large, because the state is I am not safe. Now imagine the same scene in wealth normal. You pick up what you need, and you feel no sting. You feel no shame. You feel no tension. You do not feel reckless. You feel ordinary. You feel calm. You feel of course. Of course, I can meet my needs. Of course I am supplied. Of course, life supports me. That is wealth normal. Or imagine you are at home, and you must pay something. In a state of lack, paying feels like losing. It feels like shrinking. It feels like watching your safety drain away. So you delay. You dread. You avoid. You tighten. But in wealth normal, paying feels like flow. It feels like order. It feels like a simple movement in a life that is supported. You pay, and the body remains calm, because the state is I am supplied beyond this. That is wealth normal. And here is what is beautiful. You do not need outer proof to begin feeling this inner calm. You only need to practice it enough that the subconscious begins to treat it as familiar. And the easiest hour to practice it is at the edge of sleep, where the body is already softening, where the mind is already losing its sharp arguments. Now, because many of my listeners are women who have lived long enough to know what responsibility feels like, let me speak with tenderness about a certain kind of burden. Many women carry not only their own fear of money, but the weight of others. They carry the worry for family. They carry the worry for children. They carry the worry for aging parents. They carry the worry for what might happen if something goes wrong. They have spent years being the steady one, and even when they are exhausted, their mind remains alert, because they feel, if I do not worry, who will? My friend, I honor the love behind that. But love does not require fear. Care does not require anxiety. Responsibility does not require contraction. And if you have been taught that worry is the proof of love, then you have been taught a cruel lesson. The proof of love is presence, and presence is calm. So tonight, as you make wealth normal, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are releasing the false belief that fear is necessary for protection. You are allowing a deeper intelligence to rise, one that can guide you without exhausting you. Wealth normal is, in a sense, allowing yourself to be supported by life. That may sound like a bold statement, but notice something: you are already supported by life in countless ways. The heart beats without your supervision. The lungs breathe without your instruction. The earth holds you without question. The night arrives without your effort. The dawn returns without your begging. Life is already supporting you. The question is whether you will allow that support to include money, to include supply, to include opportunity, to include ease. Because the only reason it has not seemed to include those things is that you have not accepted them as normal. You have accepted struggle as normal. You have accepted barely as normal. You have accepted behind as normal. And life has faithfully confirmed your normal. So we change the normal, not with strain, with softness, with repetition that does not feel like work, but like a lullaby. Now, if you have listened this far with the intention of sleeping, let me speak in a way that your sleepy mind can accept easily. Wealth as normal feels like a sigh. A long, quiet sigh that says, it is handled. A sigh that says, I am safe. A sigh that says, I am supplied. And you do not force the sigh, you allow it, as though the burden has already lifted. For the subconscious does not care whether the burden lifted by outer events or by inner assumption. It only knows the feeling, and it brings forth events that match the feeling. This is why I tell you, if money would make you feel relief, then relief assumed now must bring money, or its equivalent, into your world. This is law. It is not superstition. It is the reversibility of cause and effect in the realm of consciousness. But do not run ahead. Just stay with the feeling. Relief, steadiness, quiet safety. These are the inner garments of wealth. Now there is another subtle mark of wealth normal that most overlook. Wealth normal is not only calm, it is also a quiet sense of permission. When you live in lack, you feel you must ask permission for everything. Permission to rest, permission to enjoy, permission to take care of yourself, permission to say no, permission to buy what you need, permission to breathe. But wealth normal carries permission inside it. It is the feeling, I may. I may rest. I may take care of myself. I may enjoy life without guilt. I may choose. I may be generous. I may receive. I may. And this permission is not arrogance. It is the natural posture of a person who feels supported. So if you wish to know whether you are beginning to make wealth normal, observe this gently. Do you feel more permission inside your own life? Do you feel less guilt about meeting your needs? Do you feel less shame about wanting ease? Do you feel less fear about tomorrow? If so, the seed is taking root. Now, because the subconscious is trained by repetition, you must not expect to undo years of fear in one night. But you can begin tonight, and you can deepen it every night, like water shaping stone, not by force, but by persistence. Let me guide you through a simple inner picture that is not about luxury, not about grand displays, but about normality. Imagine you wake in the morning, and you do not feel the old pinch of worry. You open your eyes, and the first feeling is not, what about today? But today is fine. You rise without rushing. You move as though time is on your side. You wash, you dress, and there is no silent dread behind the motions. Then imagine you move through your day, and small expenses do not feel like danger. You buy what you need with calm. You pay what you must with calm. You do not compulsively calculate fear. You do not anticipate disaster. You simply live. Now imagine you approach the letterbox, and your hand does not tighten. You open it, and you feel neutral, steady, safe. You see paper, but it does not carry a threat. It is simply paper. You bring it inside. You open what must be opened, and there is a quiet sense that whatever appears is handled. That feeling, right there, is wealth normal. And if you can feel it now, even for a few seconds, you are already training the subconscious. Because the subconscious does not require long speeches, it requires impressions. Now perhaps you say, but Neville, what if I cannot feel that? What if fear is too strong? Then begin smaller. Do not fight fear. Do not deny it. Just soften it. The opposite of fear is not bravado. The opposite of fear is gentleness. So if fear rises, do not shout it down. Whisper something softer into the body. Whisper, it is okay. Whisper, I am safe. Whisper, I am guided. And let the breath deepen slightly. Let the shoulders drop slightly. Let the jaw loosen slightly. Even a slight shift in state is a victory, because the subconscious learns by degrees. Wealth normal does not arrive as a single leap. It arrives as a gradual change of inner atmosphere. The air changes first, then the weather, then the landscape. And here is another important point, especially for those who have lived many years with responsibility. Wealth normal is not reckless. It is not foolish. It is not careless. It is stable. It is orderly. It is grounded. It is the feeling of a woman who knows she will be provided for. She does not panic. She does not hoard. She does not tremble. She is calm, and her calm becomes magnetic. Yes, magnetic. Because people respond to state. Opportunities respond to state. Doors respond to state. The world bends to the one who no longer begs it to bend. When you feel wealth as normal, you stop sending the invisible signal of desperation. You stop broadcasting I need, and you begin to broadcast I have. And the world answers I have, with more to have. This is why I tell you again, your subconscious does not respond to your wants. It responds to what feels normal. Now I will say something that may sound strange, yet it is true. A great deal of money trouble is not money trouble. It is identity trouble. It is the identity of I am the one who worries. It is the identity of I am the one who is behind. It is the identity of I am the one who must struggle. And that identity has a feeling tone. It has a posture. It has a breath. It has a rhythm. It has a way of looking at the world. It expects trouble. It anticipates lack. It braces. So wealth normal is not merely having more. It is being different. It is being the one who does not brace. It is being the one who assumes supply. It is being the one who expects support. That is why this is not a mere money talk. It is a transformation talk. Money is only one shadow. The real change is in the state that casts the shadow. Now I know that as you listen, you may be growing drowsy. That is good. That is exactly what we want, because these impressions fall more deeply when the mind is not trying to argue. So let me speak as though I am speaking to the part of you that is already drifting towards sleep. There is no need to push. There is no need to force. There is no need to make yourself feel anything dramatic. Just soften. Just sigh. Just allow the feeling of safety to be present, as though the matter were already settled. The subconscious loves settled. The subconscious obeys settled. And as settled becomes familiar, the outer world must rearrange itself to match. You may notice that when you truly feel wealth as normal, you stop checking constantly. You stop asking when. You stop scanning for signs. You stop measuring every day as a test. That is a very important sign. The moment you stop checking, you are beginning to live in possession. Checking is what the not yet state does. Possession does not check. Possession rests. So if you find yourself wanting to check, do not condemn yourself. Just notice it and return to the feeling of course. Of course I am supplied. Of course I am safe. Of course it is handled. And let that of course become your lullaby. Now let me deepen this with a simple inner rehearsal you can carry into the borderland each night, even if you are half asleep. Imagine you are sitting quietly, perhaps with a cup of tea, perhaps in a familiar chair. Your home is calm. You feel the warmth in your hands, and in the quiet of the room, you have the feeling that everything is in order. There is no pressing fear, no urgent dread, no sense of being hunted by tomorrow, just order. In that scene, you might hear yourself say, softly, I am so grateful it is all handled, and you do not say it to get something. You say it because in the state, it is true. That kind of gratitude is not a trick. It is the fragrance of possession. Now let the scene be short. Do not make it a long story. Just a moment. A calm room. A warm cup. A quiet breath. The feeling that the burden is gone. That is wealth normal. And if you fall asleep in that feeling, you are impressing the subconscious with a new normal. Now I want you to understand something that will remove a great deal of pressure from you. The subconscious does not demand perfection. It demands consistency of state. Even if you only touch the state each night for a few minutes, if you return to it gently, it begins to take root. The soil accepts what is repeated. The mind becomes what it dwells in. The body learns what it practices. So do not worry if you have lived in fear for years. You are not condemned by that. You are simply trained by it. And training can be changed. Not by punishment, by repetition. Night after night, you return to the feeling of relief. You return to the feeling of safety. You return to the feeling of being supplied. And slowly, the old fear becomes unfamiliar. The old tightness becomes strange. The old dread loses its normality. And what loses normality loses creative power. Because the subconscious expresses what is normal, not what is argued about. So tonight and every night, we make wealth normal by making safety normal. We make money ease normal by making relief normal. We make abundance ordinary by making, of course, your inner language. Now perhaps you are wondering, but Neville, do I need to imagine a specific sum? Do I need to name an amount? My friend, amounts belong to the conscious mind. The subconscious responds first to state. If you become the one who is supplied, the channel will appear. It may come through wage, through opportunity, through a gift, through a contract, through a settlement, through a chance meeting, through an opening you could not have planned. But it will come through the bridge of incidents that your subconscious constructs in perfect wisdom. Your job is not to dictate the bridge. Your job is to be the one who has arrived. And the one who has arrived feels normal. So I ask you now, softly, what would your life feel like if wealth were normal for you? Not what would you buy, not what would you show others, not what would you prove. What would you feel? Would you feel safer? Then practice safety. Would you feel more at ease? Then practice ease. Would you feel steady? Then practice steadiness. Would you feel relief? Then practice relief. And you practice, not by pretending in the day. You practice in the borderland of sleep, where feeling is sovereign and the subconscious is open. Now as you listen, let your body take on the posture of wealth normal. It is simple. Let the shoulders drop. Let the belly soften. Let the breath become slow and wide. Let the face soften. Let the eyes rest. And feel, even faintly, that you are safe. Feel that you are supported. Feel that it is handled. That is not foolishness. That is cause. And cause, once set, produces effect. Now in the next part, I will bring you to the inner speech that seals this state like wax under a signet ring. I will show you how a simple phrase, spoken gently, not forced, can train your subconscious night after night to accept wealth as ordinary until your very reactions change and the world begins to echo your new normal. Now, my friend, we come to something that is always happening in you, even when you do not notice it. It is happening when you wash your hands, when you walk across a room, when you sit in silence, when you lie down at night and the lights go out. It is happening in the spaces between words, beneath the surface of your thoughts, in that quiet current that runs through the mind like an underground river. I speak of your inner speech. Most people think prayer is something they do once in a while. They imagine prayer is a moment of asking, a set of words spoken with solemnity, perhaps at night, perhaps in difficulty, perhaps when fear is sharp. But prayer in the true sense is not occasional. It is continuous. It never ceases. Your true prayer is the conversation you carry within yourself. Your true prayer is what you say inwardly when no one can hear you. It is what you whisper to yourself about life. It is what you quietly conclude about yourself. It is the meaning you assign to events when you think you are alone. It is the verdict you hand down in the secrecy of your own being. And because it is continuous, it is powerful. It is the steady drumbeat behind the scenes. And the world, being obedient, beats to that drum. If you could listen to the inner speech of most people for one day, you would understand their lives completely. You would not need to analyze their circumstances. You would not need to study their past. You would not need to inspect the outer picture. Their inner speech would tell you everything, for the outer world is simply the echo of that speech. A man may smile in public and speak politely, yet inwardly he repeats, I never get ahead. It's always hard. Something always happens. And life, faithful to the inner confession, provides him more evidence for the confession. A woman may speak hopefully to her friends, yet inwardly she murmurs, I am alone in this, I am not supported. I always have to carry everything. And life reflects that hidden sentence in 1,000 forms. People do not realize they are praying when they worry. They do not realize they are praying when they complain. They do not realize they are praying when they rehearse old disappointments, when they argue inwardly, when they anticipate failure, but they are. And the subconscious accepts those prayers not because it is cruel, but because it is faithful. This is why I tell you that your inner speech is not harmless. It is creative. It is the invisible pen that writes the script of tomorrow. Now, I do not say this to make you fearful of your mind. Fear would only become another state to impress. I say it to give you a gentle authority, not the authority of strain, but the authority of awareness. Because the moment you notice your inner speech, you can change it. And when you change it, you change what feels normal. You see, the subconscious does not respond to the outer words you speak for appearances. It responds to the inner atmosphere that those words come from. It responds to the tone beneath the sentence. It responds to the feeling that surrounds your self-talk. And so the inner conversation becomes the mold, and the outer world pours itself into that mold. This is why you may practice imagination at night and still feel delayed if you spend the day contradicting your own state. Not because you have ruined anything, but because you have kept returning to the old normal. You have kept feeding the old conversation, and the subconscious, being consistent, continues to express the old conversation. So tonight, we begin to give the subconscious a new conversation, one that feels like home, not a frantic affirmation, not a shouted demand, not a string of words spoken to fight fear, but a gentle decree that installs normality. And now I will give you the phrase I promised. I will give it to you simply, so that you can carry it into sleep like a soft garment, not like a heavy burden. Here it is. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. Say it slowly within yourself, as though you are speaking to the deepest part of you, the part that does not argue, the part that does not rush, the part that does not need convincing. I am already provided. Not I will be, not I hope, not maybe, already. I am safely supplied. Not a sudden rescue, not a dramatic miracle. Safe, supplied, held. It is natural for me. Not strange, not rare, not for someone else. Natural. Now do you see why this works? It is not magic. It is not superstition. It is not a charm. It works for one reason only. It changes the normal. Most people, without realizing it, have been saying something else before sleep. They have been saying, I don't know. They have been saying, I can't. They have been saying, it's not enough. They have been saying, something will happen. They have been saying, I'm behind. And those sentences, repeated softly, night after night, become normal. And what is normal becomes fact. So we replace them not by force, but by habit. We replace the old inner prayer with a new one. And because the subconscious is faithful, it begins to rearrange the world to match the new prayer. Now let me show you something important. A phrase alone is not power. Power is the feeling that accompanies it. But the phrase is the doorway into the feeling. It is the gentle hand that turns the lock. When you whisper, I am already provided, allow your body to respond as though it were true. Let the shoulders drop a little. Let the breath deepen a little. Let the chest soften. Let there be a tiny sigh, as though some invisible weight has already been lifted. That sigh is not acting. That sigh is agreement. And agreement is what impresses the subconscious. Then, I am safely supplied. Feel the safety in the word safely. Not merely supplied, but safely supplied. As though life itself is holding you, steadying you, protecting you from sharp shocks, guiding you into a calmer tomorrow. Let that word soften the nervous system. Let it loosen the habit of bracing. Then it is natural for me. This is the seal. Because the subconscious obeys what is natural. It does not struggle to bring you what you have accepted as ordinary. It does not delay what you feel is simply yours. It delays only what you treat as strange. So the phrase is not meant to excite you. It is meant to calm you. It is meant to quiet the old argument. It is meant to make the new state feel familiar. Now, you may say, but Neville, what if I say it, and it feels untrue? Of course it will, at first. That is the beginning of any new state. Every assumption begins as a seeming contradiction. If it did not, you would already be living it outwardly. The question is not whether it feels true the first time. The question is whether you will return to it gently until it feels natural. And the easiest time to do this is before sleep, when the mind that argues is fading, when the senses are no longer shouting their evidence, when you can slip into a new normal without the old resistance. So tonight, when you lie down, do not treat this phrase as a task. Treat it as a lullaby. Speak it inwardly, as you would speak to a child you love, with calm certainty, not to command, but to reassure. I am already provided, and allow a small feeling of relief. I am safely supplied, and allow a small feeling of safety. It is natural for me, and allow the sense of course. Now I want to clarify something that will save you from needless strain. You do not need to say the phrase 100 times. You do not need to count repetitions. You are not trying to wear down the subconscious. The subconscious is not an enemy you must conquer. It is a faithful servant that responds instantly to feeling. One sentence, if felt, is enough to plant a seed, but the seed is strengthened by returning to it night after night until the feeling becomes your home. So, if you fall asleep in the middle of the phrase, that is not failure. That is often the very moment it is most deeply received. For what you carry across the threshold of sleep is what the subconscious seizes as truth. Now, because some minds need a second doorway, I will give you another phrase that you may use, not as a replacement, but as a companion, something you can whisper when the day has been heavy, when you feel the old worry trying to return. Here it is done. I am at ease. I am cared for. Again, this is not poetry. It is state. It is done, ends the argument. I am at ease, installs the feeling tone. I am cared for, restores the sense of being supported by life. These phrases are not meant to fight life. They are meant to end the fight, because the fight itself is the confession of not having. And we are leaving that confession behind. Now listen, your inner speech is not only what you say about money, it is what you say about yourself in relation to life. If you say inwardly, life is hard, you will meet hardness. If you say inwardly, nothing works out for me, you will meet delay. If you say inwardly, I always have to struggle, you will meet struggle. Not because life is punishing you, but because life is agreeing with you. So, in the quiet of night, you begin to change the agreement. You begin to say, not as a wish, but as a calm decision of identity, I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. And if you will persist in this, the day will begin to feel different. Not because the world instantly becomes perfect, but because you stop giving your nervous system the same old instruction. The instruction changes first, then the reactions, then the conversations, then the opportunities, then the outer world. That is the order. The mirror changes only when the face changes. Now I want you to notice something subtle. When you speak this phrase with feeling, the mind becomes quieter. It stops scanning. It stops checking. It stops measuring. This quiet is not emptiness. It is possession. People who truly have do not obsessively check if they have. They live as though it is settled. So if you find that the phrase makes you calmer, that is not merely comfort, that is evidence. It is evidence you are entering the state, and the state once entered begins to produce its own bridge of incidents. Now perhaps you are listening while already half asleep. Good. Let this sink even deeper. Do not try to hold it with the waking mind. Let it pass into you like warm water into soil. Before you drift fully, I want you to hear the simplest truth in this section. Your inner speech is the most honest confession of your state. Change the confession, and you change the state. Change the state, and the world must change. Not to get it, to be it. Not someday. Now. And in the next part, I will show you why this inner speech, when paired with the feeling of relief, becomes so powerful that it begins to reverse the old pattern, so that what you once thought must happen first in the world begins to happen first in you, and then appears in the world as the inevitable echo. Now, my friend, I will give you a principle so simple that the mind may be tempted to pass over it, and yet it is the very hinge upon which waiting collapses. It is the quiet key that turns someday into now. It is the reason a person can stop chasing and begin receiving. I call it the law of reversibility. Do not let the name trouble you. It is only a way of pointing to something you already understand in other areas of life. You have seen it, even if you have never named it. Think of fire and heat. Fire produces heat. Yes, but under the right conditions, heat can also produce fire. Think of motion and warmth. Motion can warm the hands, and warmth can create motion. Think of a voice carried across distance. A living voice produces vibration in the air, and those vibrations, when gathered properly, reproduce the voice again. The current runs both ways. Cause and effect in the outer world often exchange places. Now the human being has been taught to live as though life only moves in one direction, First the event, then the feeling. First the money, then the relief. First the promotion, then the confidence. First the proof, then the peace. First the outer change, then the inner ease. And because people live this way, they spend their lives waiting. They place their peace in the future. They place their relief in tomorrow. They place their calm on the other side of some event that has not yet happened. And so they remain restless, because they have made their inner life dependent on outer permission. But the law of reversibility declares the opposite. If an outer event would produce a certain inner feeling, then that inner feeling, assumed and entered now, must produce the outer event or its equivalent. Do you see the liberation in this? If money would make you feel relief, then relief felt now must call forth money, or something that does the work of money in your life. If being supplied would make you feel safe, then safety assumed now must call forth supply. If freedom from debt would make you breathe easily, then breathing easily now, truly, quietly, inwardly, must begin to shape the conditions that bring freedom. This is not wishful thinking. It is the structure of the law. The subconscious does not create from logic. It creates from feeling. It creates from the reality you accept inwardly. So the order is reversed. You do not wait for the outer world to deliver the feeling. You enter the feeling, and the outer world rearranges itself to justify it. Feel the effect first. That is the secret. Now I want you to understand why this is so important. Because if you grasp it in your bones, you will stop living as a prisoner of time. Most people are caught in a cruel loop. They say, when the money comes, I will finally relax. But because they do not relax, they continue to impress the subconscious with tension. They say, when the debt is gone, I will feel free. But because they do not feel free, they continue to impress the subconscious with bondage. They say, when things improve, I will be grateful. But because they do not feel grateful, they continue to impress the subconscious with lack, and then they wonder why life does not shift. It is not because life is stubborn. It is because they are planting the old state every day. They are watering the seed of worry while praying for the fruit of relief. They are feeding the subconscious the feeling of not having while asking it to produce having. They are telling life in the deepest language, feeling. It is not done, and life reflects not done. So the law of reversibility rescues you from this waiting game. It says, take the very feeling you believe the event would give you, and enter it now. Live in it now. Sleep in it now. Make it normal now. And then the event must come. Because the subconscious must externalize what is felt as true. That is why I have emphasized relief so much. Relief is not merely a pleasant emotion. Relief is a creative state. Relief is the signature of already provided. Relief is the feeling tone of it is handled. Relief is the natural fragrance of having received, and the subconscious, receiving that fragrance, must produce the conditions that justify it. Now the mind may say, but Neville, how can I feel relief when the bill is still there? That question is the old order speaking. That question assumes the bill is cause and relief is effect. But the law says the opposite. Relief is cause, the bill is effect. If the bill is still there, it is the echo of a former state. You do not change it by staring at it. You change it by changing what you are. So I tell you gently, do not argue with the bill. Do not fight it. Do not deny that you see it. Simply refuse to take your feeling from it. Take your feeling from the end. Feel the effect first. Now let me bring this down to your experience in the simplest way. Ask yourself, quietly, without strain, what would I feel if I were safely supplied? Not what would I do, not what would I buy, not what would I tell others. What would I feel? You would feel calmer. You would feel lighter. You would feel as though something heavy has been lifted from your chest. You would feel less hurried. You would feel less threatened. You would feel more room inside your day. You would feel more permission to rest. Very well. Enter that feeling now. Not by forcing your mind to pretend, by letting your body soften into the sensation, as though it were already true. Because your body knows how to feel relief. You have felt it before. You do not have to invent it. You only have to remember it and allow it to return. Do you remember the last time you received good news? Perhaps it was small. Perhaps it was simply that something you feared did not happen. Perhaps you expected a difficulty and it dissolved. Or perhaps someone helped you unexpectedly. In that moment, your body changed. The breath deepened. The shoulders dropped. The jaw softened. The mind stopped racing. That is relief. Now you do not have to wait for another event to produce that relief. You can call it forth now. You can let the body adopt it now. You can breathe as though it is done now. And the subconscious, hearing the language of relief, begins to rearrange life to match. This is the law. Now, it may help you to think of it like this. If you wait for the world to change before you change within, you are asking the mirror to change first. But if you change within first, you are changing the face. The mirror must follow. And the law of reversibility tells you how to change the face without strain. You do not strain to be relieved. You simply stop clinging to the cause you falsely assign to the outer world. You stop believing relief must be earned by outer proof. You allow relief as an inner state now, and the outer proof is drawn to it like iron to a magnet. Feel the effect first. Now I will offer you an image, and I want you to let it sink in softly, as though you are listening from the edge of sleep. Imagine a woman who has carried money, worry for years. She is not foolish. She has lived. She has paid bills. She has carried responsibility. She has done her best. Yet the worry sits in her like a habit. It speaks to her when she wakes and when she lies down. She does not even know she is speaking it anymore. It speaks itself. One night she hears this principle, and she decides not to fight the world, but to change her inner posture. She does not demand a miracle. She does not shout. She does not strain. She simply lies down and says inwardly, "If it were handled, how would I feel?" And she lets herself sigh. Not a dramatic sigh, a quiet sigh, as though something is finished. She whispers, "It is done." And she feels, for the first time in a long time, a few moments of ease. Her shoulders soften, her breath widens, her belly loosens, her mind becomes still, and she falls asleep in that ease. The next day, nothing looks different at first glance, but she is different. She is less reactive. She is less frightened. She is not feeding the old state. She returns again at night to the same ease, the same sigh, the same feeling of it is done. And then, in time, often sooner than the mind expects, the world begins to respond. A door opens, a conversation happens, a bill is reduced, an opportunity appears, help arrives. She may call it coincidence, but it is not coincidence, it is correspondence. The outer world is simply catching up with the inner decision. Life is building the bridge of incidents, quietly, faithfully, because she has entered the state that demands its own justification. That is the law of reversibility at work. It takes the feeling you once believed you had to wait for, and it turns it into the cause. Now do you see why this collapses waiting? Because waiting is the state of I do not have. Waiting is the feeling of not yet. Waiting is the posture of distance, and the subconscious, receiving waiting, produces more things to wait for. It is faithful, it is exact, but when you enter the feeling of having, when you enter relief, safety, calm, there is nothing left to wait for. The state itself implies fulfillment, and the subconscious must produce the world that matches the implication. So the question becomes, will you keep waiting for the world to give you permission to feel free, or will you feel free and let the world rearrange itself? Feel the effect first. Now I want to go deeper, because some will hear this and still attempt to turn it into effort. They will say, "Very well, I will force myself to feel relief." And they will strain, and the strain will only confirm not yet, because strain is the feeling of I am trying to get. Strain is not relief. Strain is still waiting in disguise. So do not force relief. Invite it. Let it come as naturally as a yawn comes when you are tired. Let it come as naturally as the shoulders drop when you stop holding something heavy. Let it come as naturally as the breath deepens when danger is gone. You do not manufacture relief. You allow it by ceasing to rehearse fear. This is why inner speech matters. If you continue to whisper, "What if it doesn't work?" you are not inviting relief. You are feeding worry. So you change the conversation, and you let the body respond. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. And then you let that sentence produce its own sigh. That sigh is the effect. The sigh is the evidence that you have entered the state. Now let me use another metaphor, because metaphors speak to the deeper mind, the mind that listens while you sleep. Imagine you are standing in a room where a fragrance lingers, perhaps a familiar scent, something warm, something comforting. You do not argue with the fragrance. You do not force it. It simply fills the room. And as it fills the room, everything you breathe is touched by it. Your body begins to relax because the fragrance is associated with safety, with home, with ease. Now imagine that relief is a fragrance. When you enter relief, you are filling the inner room with the scent of "it is done." And the subconscious, which lives in that inner room, begins to treat "it is done" as normal. It begins to build life around that fragrance. It begins to draw events that match it, because it must. Now you may ask, must it always come as money? Must it always come in the exact form I imagined? My friend, the subconscious is wiser than the conscious mind. It may bring the relief through a channel you never considered. It may bring money. It may bring an opportunity. It may bring a reduction of burden. It may bring a solution that changes the entire structure of your finances. It may bring the equivalent of the desire in a form that perfectly matches your need, but it will bring the state into expression, because the state is what you have planted. This is why I always tell my students, do not be attached to the channel. Be loyal to the state. If you are loyal to the state of being supplied, supply will come. If you insist on one narrow form, you may overlook the bridge being built in another direction. So the law of reversibility frees you not only from waiting, it frees you from micromanaging life. It says enter the end. Feel the effect first. Let life produce the cause in the outer world. Now here is where the power becomes immediate, because you do not need to wait to feel relief. You can feel it now, and when you feel it now, you have already begun the creative act. Let me guide you softly, as though you are drifting. Do not sit up. Do not strain. Just notice your breath. Notice if there is any tightness in the chest. Now, without forcing, let your exhale lengthen slightly. Not a deep breath, just a longer out breath, like a quiet letting go. And as you exhale, whisper inwardly, "It is done." Not because you are trying to persuade the world, because you are selecting a state. Now imagine, just a small image, nothing elaborate, that you have just been told, "It is handled." It is handled. It might be a letter stamped paid. It might be a voice saying, "Don't worry, it's taken care of." It might be you looking at a matter that once frightened you and feeling nothing sharp. Hold that for a moment, and then notice what happens in the body when you accept it. That softening is the effect. You have felt the effect first, and in that moment, you have planted the cause. Now, if you fall asleep right there, you have done the most important thing, because the subconscious accepts what you fall asleep feeling as truth, and it begins at once to reorganize the world to confirm it. This is why I say the law is immediate in its acceptance, even if the outer expression takes its appointed time. The seed is accepted the moment you plant it. The harvest comes in its season, but the acceptance is now. Now I want to speak to those who have been waiting a long time, those who feel tired of effort, those who feel that they have tried many things and seen little movement. My friend, it may not be that the law failed you. It may be that you have never entered the effect. You have been trying to use imagination while still living in the feeling of not yet, and not yet always wins. So tonight, do not practice hoping. Practice having. Practice the effect. Feel the effect first. Now let me show you why this is so dependable. If you walk into a room and you feel embarrassed, your face flushes, your posture changes, your voice changes, the body responds to the feeling as if the cause were already present. The outer world then often responds to that posture and confirms your embarrassment. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, that is reversibility, but used unconsciously. If fear makes you feel tight, you behave tight. Others respond to that. Circumstances seem to press. The world mirrors the state. But if relief makes you feel open, you behave open. You speak differently. You notice opportunities you would have missed. You respond rather than react. You choose differently. And the world mirrors that openness. Do you see? The state carries its own world. So when you enter relief first, you not only summon outer events, you also become the kind of person who can walk the bridge when it appears. You become receptive. You become calm. You become guided. You become less blind to the very incidents that will lead you to fulfillment. This is why the law is so intelligent. It is not merely thoughts become things. It is states become worlds. And the world you enter first within becomes the world you walk in later without. Now I will repeat the key gently, so that it can sink into you while you drift. If money would make you feel relief, then relief assumed now must bring money or its equivalent. If being supplied would make you feel safe, then safety assumed now must bring supply. If freedom would make you breathe easily, then breathing easily now must call forth freedom. Feel the effect first. Now you may be wondering, how long must I feel it? That question is still the old habit of effort. It wants a measurement. It wants a guarantee. But the law is not a bargain. It is a planting. A seed does not ask, how long must I be in the soil? It simply is in the soil. And in being there, it grows. So do not measure. Do not count minutes. Do not turn this into labor. Enter the feeling as you would enter sleep softly. Touch it, return to it, fall into it. Let it become familiar. And the moment it becomes familiar, it becomes normal. And the moment it becomes normal, the subconscious accepts it. And the moment it is accepted, the bridge begins to form. In the next part, I will take this even deeper and show you how to revise the money memories that keep the nervous system trained in fear, so that relief can become your natural dwelling place, not a momentary visit, but a home. Now, my friend, I want to take you into a practice that many overlook, not because it is difficult, but because it is so quiet that the mind, always hunting for something grand, passes it by. Yet this practice can dissolve a lifetime of tension around money with a gentleness that feels almost unbelievable when you first meet it. I call it revision. And if you are listening as you drift towards sleep, this is the perfect hour for it, because revision is not something you do with strain. It is something you do with softness. It is something you do as you would turn a page in a book and choose calmly to read a different ending. Most people do not realize they are revising all the time. They revise unconsciously in the wrong direction. They take an old scene, an argument, a shameful moment, a frightening letter, a memory of we can't, and they replay it again and again with the same feeling. They add new details. They sharpen the pain. They justify the fear. They tell the story repeatedly until the nervous system treats it as a law. And then they wonder why money still feels like danger. The body is not foolish, my friend. The body is faithful. It will continue to brace if it has been trained to believe that money brings threat, that bills bring humiliation, that lack brings shame, that asking for help brings rejection. The mind may say, it's in the past, but the body says, I remember. And as long as the body remembers with feeling, the subconscious continues to treat money as a battlefield. It continues to produce the same climate, because the subconscious does not distinguish between yesterday remembered and today lived. It feels only the feeling. It accepts only the state. It brings forth what is impressed upon it. So revision is not about pretending the past never happened. Revision is about changing the feeling tone of the past, so that it stops instructing your body to brace in the present. It is about withdrawing life from an old image and giving life to a new one. It is about lifting the thorn from the nervous system, gently, without forcing. You may not have realized it, but much of what you call money problems is not money at all. It is memory. It is the echo of moments that trained you to associate money with pain. Perhaps there was a time you were embarrassed about money, perhaps you could not pay for something, and you felt the heat rise in your face. Perhaps you were spoken to harshly. Perhaps you were made to feel small. Perhaps you asked, and the answer was no. And the no carried shame with it. Perhaps you heard adults speak with fear, and even as a child, you absorbed the feeling that money was danger. Or perhaps you have your own memory. A night you lay awake as bills piled up, a fear you carried alone, a conversation where someone said, "We can't," and the words struck something deep in you, as though they were not a statement but a verdict. Or perhaps you remember a sudden letter, a sudden demand, a sudden loss, a moment when the ground felt uncertain, and your body decided, money is not safe, life is not safe, life is not safe. I must brace. Now listen to me carefully. These moments are not your fault. They are simply impressions, and impressions can be changed. Not by fighting them, but by revising them. Because the past is not stored in you as dead history. It is stored as a living imaginal act. Every time you remember, you are imagining. And imagination is not a weak thing. It is the very substance of experience. So if a memory is imagination, then it is revisable. And if it is revisable, then your present can be freed from its old instruction. This is why revision is so powerful. It is not merely comfort, it is a change of seed. It is planting a different cause in the subconscious. So the harvest must also change. Now you might say, but Neville, can I truly change the past? My friend, you change the past every time you remember it with a different feeling. You change it every time you soften it. You change it every time you forgive it. You change it every time you stop feeding it with fear. You may still know the event occurred, but the event no longer owns you. The event no longer writes tomorrow. That is the real meaning of changing the past. It is removing its authority. And it is done in a way so simple that the mind may resist it out of pride, because pride likes complexity. Pride likes struggle. Pride likes the idea that healing must be earned through pain. But I tell you, life does not require your suffering as payment. Life requires only your consent to a new state. So tonight we will revise money memories, not all at once, not with force, but with gentleness. One at a time, like removing small stones from your shoe until you can walk without pain. Let us begin by understanding what a memory truly is. A memory is not the past. It is an imaginal scene you are enacting now. When you recall a moment, you are not traveling back in time. You are recreating an inner picture now, and you are feeling it now, and your body responds now. Your heart rate changes now. Your breathing changes now. Your muscles tighten now. Your stomach knots now. That means the memory is alive now. And if it is alive now, it can be changed now. Most people continue to punish themselves with old scenes. They replay what they should have said. They replay what went wrong. They replay the shame. And every replay is a new planting. It is the same seed pressed into the subconscious again and again. And the subconscious, faithful as soil, grows it. So revision is simply planting a different seed. It is taking the scene that still has a hook in you and changing it until it no longer hooks you. It is taking the old picture and giving it a new ending, a new tone, a new feeling. And when you do this with sincerity, the subconscious accepts the new version and begins to express a different future. Now I will guide you through it with softness, as though I am guiding you into sleep. Do not strain to find the perfect memory. Do not search your life like a judge. Just allow something to rise that feels tender around money. It might be small, it might be large, it might be a brief moment, it might be a long scene. The size does not matter, the feeling matters. Choose the one that still makes the body tighten even slightly. It might be a moment of embarrassment, standing at a counter, perhaps, or being asked for payment, or having to say you could not. It might be a letter. It might be a phone call. It might be a conversation in the home. It might be a moment where you felt judged. It might be a moment where you felt helpless. It might be a moment where you felt the fear of not being able to provide, not being able to keep up, not being able to breathe. Let one such scene come, gently. If nothing comes, do not force it. You can revise later, but if something comes, hold it lightly. Do not dive into pain. Do not relive it as punishment. Simply view it as a scene on a stage, something you will now rewrite. Now here is the art. You do not revise by arguing with the scene. You revise by replacing it. You take the moment as it happened, and then you change one thing, one detail that implies a different meaning. You change the words spoken. You change the expression on a face. You change the outcome. You change the tone. You do not need to rewrite the whole world. A single change, if it alters the feeling, is enough, because the subconscious responds to feeling, not complexity. So if the old scene ended with, "We can't," then revise it into "It is taken care of." If the old scene ended with shame, revise it into dignity. If the old scene ended with fear, revise it into safety. If the old scene ended with silence and loneliness, revise it into support. Let me show you how this looks in practice. Suppose you remember a conversation. Perhaps you asked for something. Perhaps you needed help. Perhaps you were worried. And you heard words like, "We can't afford it," or "That's impossible," or "Money doesn't grow on trees," or "Not now," or "You should know better." Words that carried not just refusal, but a sting. If you revise, you go back to that same moment, but you change the words. You hear a different sentence. You hear, "Of course we can." Or you hear, "It's all right, we have enough." Or you hear, "Don't worry, it's handled." And you feel the difference in the body. That difference, relief, is the new seed. Or suppose you remember opening a letter, and fear rose before you even read it. In revision, you take the same letter, but you see a different stamp on it. You see paid. You see settled. You see closed. You see approved. You see the words that imply safety, and you let the body soften in response. The scene becomes short, simple, and the feeling changes. That changed feeling is what the subconscious accepts. Or suppose you remember a moment of embarrassment at a counter, a moment when you could not pay, or you felt exposed. In revision, you do not argue. You do not shame yourself further. You simply replay the moment and change the outcome. You see yourself paying with ease. You see the clerk smiling kindly. You hear a warm, ordinary tone, as though nothing was ever wrong. You feel steady. You feel dignified. You feel safe. You are not lying to the universe. You are instructing the subconscious. You are changing what your body associates with money. You are teaching your nervous system that money does not mean danger. You are giving it a new memory to live by. And this is why revision is so healing. It removes the hidden poison from the roots. Many people try to manifest wealth while their roots still whisper, "Money is dangerous." And if money is dangerous, the body will resist it. It will sabotage, it will avoid, it will tense, it will turn away from opportunity. It will shrink from receiving, not because you are foolish, but because you are trained. So revision retrains. Now let us go deeper, because I want you to understand the true mechanism. Your present reactions are largely memories in motion. The moment you see a bill and your chest tightens, that tightening is not today's bill alone. It is every bill in your history that carried fear. It is the accumulated meaning. It is the body saying, "I know this pattern." And if you do not revise the pattern, the body keeps repeating it. But if you revise the pattern, the body learns a new response. Imagine a child who has been frightened by storms. Each time thunder sounds, the body flinches. Years pass, and still the body flinches. Not because the thunder is dangerous, but because the association remains. Now imagine the child is guided gently, again and again, to feel safe during the storm. The body learns. The flinch softens. One day thunder sounds, and the body no longer panics. The storm did not change. The response changed. So it is with money. Money is not the storm. Your association is. So we change the association through revision. Now do not rush to revise everything at once. Tonight we do one scene softly. Tomorrow night, another. Little by little, you drain fear from the past. And in doing so, you drain it from the future. Now, because you are listening while you sleep, I will guide you in a way that does not require strain. You may simply listen and allow it to happen, even if you drift. Let a money memory rise now, gently. If one has already come, stay with it. If one has not, choose a simple one. Perhaps a moment of worry, a moment of we can't, a moment of a bill, a moment of embarrassment, a moment of dread. Do not intensify it. Do not force yourself to feel pain. Simply acknowledge, this scene trained my body. Now in imagination, replay it briefly, just enough to know what you are revising. And now, change it. Change it with one simple shift. If the memory is a conversation of lack, replace it with a conversation of safety. Hear the voice, perhaps your own, perhaps another's. Say something like, it is taken care of. Hear the tone as calm, ordinary, almost casual, because it is normal. Hear it as though it has always been true. If the memory is a bill, see it stamped paid in full. Feel the relief. Feel the shoulders drop. Feel the breath widen. Let the body respond as though it is done. If the memory is embarrassment, revise it into dignity. See yourself calm. See yourself paying easily. See the face of the other person kind, not judging. Feel ordinary, feel safe. Now repeat the revised moment. Not many times, just enough that it begins to feel like it could have happened, like it might have happened, like it should have happened, and then let it feel as though it did happen. That is the moment of planting. Now here is something most do not realize. The subconscious does not argue with revision. It accepts the version you feel as real. If you replay the revised scene with relief, it will accept relief as the truth of that memory. And once relief becomes the truth of the memory, your body stops bracing in the present when similar situations arise. This is how revision frees you. It is not merely thinking positively, it is rewriting the instruction that your nervous system has been obeying. Now, because this is a long life for many of you listening, and because money memories can be layered, let me speak to the deep kindness required here. Some money memories carry shame. Shame is one of the heaviest energies a person can carry. It makes the heart shrink. It makes the throat close. It makes the mind whisper cruel things. It makes you believe you are defective, as though needing help were a moral failure. But shame is not truth. Shame is an interpretation, and interpretations can be revised. If you have shame around money, it may come from being judged, being scolded, being made to feel irresponsible, being compared, being humiliated, being told you are bad with money, being treated as though lack were your identity. But lack is not identity. It is a state, and states can be left. So in revision, you do not only change the outer outcome of the memory, you change the inner meaning. You take the scene where you felt ashamed, and you revise it into compassion. You see yourself treated with kindness. You hear words that restore dignity. You hear, it's okay. You hear, you are doing your best. You hear, you are supported. You hear, you are not alone. And you let your body accept those words as real. Now, do not underestimate the power of that. A woman who has carried money, shame for years, often has a body trained to brace. Even when good comes, when money arrives, she cannot relax, because she expects it to be taken, or lost, or judged. But when she revises shame into dignity, the body begins to allow receiving. It begins to treat money as safe, rather than as a test. So revision is not only about bills, it is about your right to be supported. Now let me speak directly to the memory of we can't, because that sentence has carved itself into many hearts, like a scar. We can't is not only a statement about money. It becomes a statement about life. It becomes a statement about possibility. It becomes a statement about your worth. We can't often means we are limited. We can't often means we must go without. We can't often means life is hard. And once those words are repeated enough, the subconscious treats them as normal. the body learns to expect disappointment. So revision changes we can't into it is possible. It changes we can't into it is handled. It changes we can't into we are supported. And I want you to hear something. You do not need to persuade the conscious mind that it was always possible. You only need to install the feeling of possibility as normal, because the subconscious obeys the feeling. So if you remember a conversation where we can't was spoken, revise it now in imagination. Hear a different sentence. Here, of course we can. Or here, let's not worry. It will be taken care of. Hear it in a calm tone. Hear it as ordinary. And let the relief settle in your chest. Now you may ask, but Neville, what if the person who spoke to me was harsh? What if they truly hurt me? My friend, revision is not about excusing others. It is about freeing yourself. The harsh words have been living in you like a recording, and each time you replay them, you give them life again. Revision turns off the recording. It does not erase the past from history, but it erases its power from your present, and that is freedom. Now, because you are listening in the night, perhaps half asleep, I will guide you in a slow, soothing rhythm, the kind that can drift into the subconscious without resistance. Choose one scene, just one. Do not choose the worst. If the worst feels too heavy, choose one that you can touch gently without being pulled into pain. Now see it as if it is happening, just for a moment. Now change it. Hear different words. See a different outcome. Feel the relief. Let the relief become the truth of the scene. Now repeat the revised version once more, gently, as though you are brushing dust from something precious, and then let it go. Do not hold it tightly. Do not analyze it. Do not ask, did I do it right? If you felt relief, you did it. If you felt safety, you did it. If you felt dignity, you did it. Because feeling is the language of the subconscious. Now let me explain something that will deepen your trust in this practice. The subconscious does not know the difference between an imaginal act and an external act. It responds to the imaginal act as reality, when it is felt as reality. That is why people can be frightened by imagination. That is why they can blush at a memory. That is why they can feel hurt by something that is not happening now. The body responds. The subconscious responds. This proves the point. Imagination is real to the inner man. So if imagination can produce fear in the body, imagination can produce relief. If imagination can train you into tension, imagination can train you into safety. If imagination can keep you bound, imagination can set you free. Revision is simply using imagination in the direction of freedom. Now some people will ask, how often must I revise? My friend, revise as often as you remember with pain. Each night, take a moment before sleep and ask yourself gently, what today would I like to have gone differently? It may be money related. It may be a conversation. It may be a reaction. It may be a moment of anxiety. Whatever it is, revise it into the version that implies you are supported. Because revision does something remarkable. It stops you from carrying the day's tension into sleep. Many people go to bed and replay the day's worries, and the subconscious, receiving worry at the doorway of sleep, produces more worry in the morning. Revision breaks that cycle. It says, no, tonight I do not plant fear. Tonight I plant relief. And that is why it is so powerful for those who listen while sleeping. It turns bedtime into a healing chamber. Now let me give you a gentle routine you can follow without turning it into a manual, simply as a natural sequence of feeling. When you are in bed and the body is heavy, ask yourself one question, softly. What would I like to set right? Do not search. Just let something come. Then, in imagination, see it as it happened, briefly. Then, rewrite it. Let it end in dignity. Let it end in support. Let it end in paid, settled, approved, handled, safe. Then feel the relief. Then fall asleep in the relief. That is all. This is not labor. This is not penance. This is not punishment. This is mercy. Now I want to speak to those who have carried long years of financial fear, because the mind may say, Can a simple imaginal act undo decades? And I tell you, yes, if you persist. Not because imagination is magic, but because the subconscious is faithful. It learns what you teach it. It expresses what you impress. A person does not become fearful in one day. Fear is trained. It is repeated. It is rehearsed. And because it is rehearsed, it becomes normal. So we do the same in the other direction. We rehearse relief. We rehearse safety. We rehearse being supplied. We revise the scenes that taught fear and replace them with scenes that teach support. Night after night, the old normal weakens. Night after night, the new normal strengthens. And then one day, you notice something small but profound. You look at a money matter and your body does not tighten as it once did. You open a letter and you do not dread it. You glance at numbers and you do not feel ashamed. You hear talk of money and you do not shrink. The fear is no longer the default. Relief has become familiar. And when relief becomes familiar, money begins to flow differently. Not only because circumstances change, but because you no longer repel it with fear. This is not theory. This is the deepest psychology of your being. The subconscious cannot separate your money story from your self-concept. If money is danger, then receiving feels dangerous. If money is shame, then having feels uncomfortable. If money is conflict, then supply brings tension. So the body unconsciously avoids it. It delays it, it mishandles it. It pushes it away through decisions that seem reasonable but are guided by fear. Revision changes the story at the root. It says money is safe. It says I am supported. It says I can be supplied without shame. It says I can receive without fear. And once the subconscious accepts those as normal, life must reflect them. Now I will speak for a moment to the woman who has been the caretaker, the one who always held things together. Often such a woman carries hidden money memories because she felt she had to be strong, and strong meant never showing fear, never asking, never admitting worry. But the worry lived in her anyway, quietly. It became part of her nightly inner speech. It became part of her body. It became bracing. Revision is where she can finally be held. In revision, you do not need to be strong. You can be safe. In revision, you do not need to hide. You can be supported. In revision, you do not need to carry the old conversation. You can replace it with a new one. So if you remember a moment when you carried fear alone, revise it into a moment where someone comforts you. Hear a voice, gentle, kind, saying, you are not alone. You are provided for. You are safely supplied. Hear it as real. Let your chest soften. Let your eyes soften. Let the body accept it. This is not childish. This is restoring the nervous system to truth. Because the deeper truth is that you were never meant to live in perpetual bracing. Life is not meant to be a constant threat. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and that kingdom is supply, not strain. It is support, not panic. It is order, not dread. So you revise the old scenes, not merely to feel better, but to align with the truth of your being. Now there is a very tender form of revision I want to offer you, and it is especially powerful for those whose money memories are bound to their voice, those whose inner speech was shaped by words spoken to them long ago. Sometimes a sentence spoken in childhood becomes a prophecy in adulthood. You'll never, you always, you're not, money is. People like us don't. These phrases sink into the subconscious and become normal. Then, even when opportunity appears, the person feels it is not for them. Even when supply comes, the person feels it will leave. Even when help arrives, the person feels unworthy. So revision takes that sentence and replaces it. If you remember being told something that made you feel small, revise it. Now, hear different words. Here, you are capable. Here, you are worthy. Here, you are blessed. Here, you are supported. Here, it is natural for you. Then let the body respond, because the body is where the subconscious listens. Now I know that as you listen, your mind may drift, and that is good. Let it drift. Let these suggestions pass into you like warm water. You do not have to hold them consciously. You can let them enter the deeper mind, the mind that builds tomorrow while you sleep. If you wish, you may do a simple revision now, as you lie there. Think of one money moment that still carries a sting. Do not judge yourself for it. Do not punish yourself with it. Just notice it. Now soften it, change it. See it end in safety. Hear the words, "It is done." Hear the words, "It is done." Hear the words, "It is handled." See the stamp, "Paid in full." Feel the sigh. Let your shoulders drop. Let the relief be real. Now let that relief be the last taste you carry into sleep, because what you carry into sleep becomes the instruction the subconscious seals. And when the subconscious is instructed in relief, life must begin to arrange relief. Now you may ask, will this change my outer world? Yes, it will, because it changes your inner world. And the outer world is the shadow of the inner. But even before the outer changes, something more precious changes. You change. You become less frightened. You become less reactive. You become calmer. You become steadier. And that steadiness itself is wealth. It is the true beginning of wealth. Because wealth is not merely money in hand. It is safety in the soul. And when safety in the soul becomes normal, money follows naturally, because money is simply one of the shadows of safety. Now, in the next part, I will show you how the bridge of incidents begins to unfold once you have planted these new seeds, how you must not dig them up with anxious checking, how you must not demand the channel, how you must trust the unfolding. And I will show you how to move through your days without undoing what you have planted at night. Now, my friend, we come to the part where many stumble, not because the law has failed them, but because they misunderstand the way the law fulfills itself. They plant the seed in imagination, and then they rise in the morning and stare at the soil, demanding to see the sprout at once. They look at the outer world like a judge, like an inspector, like someone searching for proof that they did it correctly. And in that searching, they return to the old state of not yet. So I must speak to you now about the bridge of incidents. This phrase may sound mysterious, and in a sense it is, because the bridge is always invisible while it is being built. You do not see the hands that arrange it. You do not hear the quiet movements behind the curtain. You do not know which small event is the first stone, which conversation is the first plank, which delay is actually protection, which closed door is actually the opening of a better one. But the bridge is real, and once the seed is planted, the bridge begins at once. It begins not later, not after you have earned it, not after you have proven yourself worthy. It begins the moment the subconscious accepts the new state as true, the moment you fall asleep feeling provided, the moment you enter relief and call it normal, the moment you revise the old fear into safety. At that moment, the machinery of fulfillment begins to move. Now, you must understand something. The bridge is not a single dramatic event. It is often a chain of ordinary events. It is often so natural that you will be tempted to dismiss it. You will say that was just chance, or that was nothing, or that happens to everyone. But it was not nothing. It was the law unfolding. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. The bridge is life rearranging itself to match your new inner state. It is people moved by impulses they do not understand. It is opportunities appearing from directions you could not have designed. It is timing becoming strange and perfect. It is the outer world, bending quietly, step by step, until it stands in the exact form that your assumption requires. Now, the reason many fail here is because they try to dictate the how. They say, it must come this way. They insist, it must happen by this person, by this date, through this channel. And they do this because they still believe the outer world is cause. They still believe they must control the path in order to receive the end. But my friend, if you could control the path, you would not need the law. The very beauty of the law is that it accomplishes the end through means you could not have devised. The subconscious is wiser than your reasoning mind. It sees connections you cannot see. It knows how to move people, how to weave circumstances, how to time events, how to shift the stage so naturally that you will look back and marvel. So I warn you gently, do not dictate the bridge. Do not stand at the beginning of the river and demand that it flow in straight lines. The river knows how to reach the sea. It will bend, it will wend, it will move around stones, it will cut through soft soil, it will take the path of least resistance, and yet it will arrive. If you insist the river must take one rigid path, you will only frustrate yourself. But if you trust that the river knows its nature, you will watch it reach its destination without struggle. So it is with your manifestation. The bridge will bend, it will wind, it will sometimes look like a delay, it may look like a detour, it may even look like a disappointment at first glance. But if you remain loyal to the end, you will later see it was all part of the shortest path. Here is a great comfort I want to give you. The bridge does not require your approval while it is being built. You are not asked to judge every step. You are not asked to understand every incident. You are not asked to see the whole pattern at once. You are asked only to persist in the state, because the state is the end, and the end contains its own means. If you assume yourself to be supplied, then the means by which you are supplied will appear. You do not have to invent them. You do not have to chase them. You do not have to force doors open. Doors will open. People will appear, events will shift, and it will feel natural. Now I know the mind protests again, because it wants certainty in the outer. It says, but how will I know it's working? My friend, that question is the voice of the old state. It is the voice of not yet. It is the voice of someone standing outside the house of fulfillment, peering through the window, asking if the meal is really there. The answer is simple. If you have entered the state, it is working. The seed is alive beneath the soil, even when the surface looks unchanged. So when you wake tomorrow and you see the same world, do not panic. Do not conclude failure. The world you see tomorrow morning is often the last echo of yesterday's state. It is the old harvest still being gathered. It does not cancel the new seed. It only proves the old seed once existed. And if you allow that old harvest to frighten you, you will return to the old planting. You will plant fear again. But if you remain calm and say inwardly, this is only the mirror catching up, I have changed the face, then you protect the seed. So hear this deeply. If today you do not see anything, it means nothing. It means nothing. It means only that the outer world has not yet caught up to the inner, and it always lags. The mirror always reflects after the face has changed, not before. This is why you must live by faith and not by sight. Now let me explain what faith truly means in this context, because many have been taught a strange version of it. Faith is not desperation. Faith is not hoping with clenched fists. Faith is not repeating words while your heart trembles. Faith is not the strain of trying to believe something against your own senses. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. Faith is remaining in the state you have accepted as true, even when the old evidence still lingers. Faith is calm. Faith is quiet. Faith is quiet. Faith is the naturalness of one who already has. And that is why I told you to make wealth normal. Because normality is faith without effort. Normality does not have to believe. It simply is. So when you have impressed the subconscious with the state of being supplied, you do not spend the next day hunting for proof. Hunting is a confession of lack. You do not spend the next day checking constantly. Checking is the behavior of not yet. You do not spend the next day testing the law with anxious eyes. That is still waiting. Instead, you move through the day as one who has planted the seed and trusts the soil. If a thought comes that tries to pull you back into worry, you do not fight it violently. You do not argue with it. You simply return to your inner decree. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. And you let the body soften again. That is how you remain on the bridge without falling into the river of doubt. Now the bridge of incidents is often so subtle that you will not recognize it until after you have crossed it. You will look back and see that the phone call you almost ignored was a plank in the bridge. You will see that the meeting you did not want to attend was part of it. You will see that the delay that frustrated you saved you from something worse. You will see that the door that closed forced you to look to another door that was far better. But at the time, you will not know, and you are not meant to know. Because if you knew the whole bridge in advance, you would try to control it, and control is the habit of fear. Control is the confession that life cannot be trusted. Control is the old state trying to supervise the new. So I tell you, let the bridge build itself. Your task is not to direct the bridge. Your task is to remain faithful to the end. Now let me give you a simple image to hold in your mind. Imagine you are standing on one shore, and the other shore is your fulfilled desire. Your life, where wealth is normal, where you are supplied, where money is no longer a daily threat. Between the two shores is water. The mind looks at the water and says, "How will I cross?" It wants to build a bridge with its own hands. It wants to plan every plank. It wants to measure every distance. It wants to control every step. But the subconscious, once impressed, begins to lay planks beneath your feet as you walk. You do not see the whole bridge. You see only the next step. And the next step feels natural. It feels ordinary. You take it without thinking, because it appears as the thing you happen to do that day. And step by step, without strain, you find yourself on the other shore. That is the bridge of incidents. Now this is why I urge you not to become obsessed with signs. People often say, "Show me a sign." They want a feather to fall, a number to appear, a strange coincidence to prove that the law is working. But those signs are not necessary, and they can become traps, because the one who hunts for signs is often still in the state of not having. They are still asking life to prove something before they will accept it. But acceptance must come first. The only true sign is the inner shift. If you feel calmer, that is a sign. If you feel steadier, that is a sign. If you feel relief beginning to become familiar, that is a sign. If you find yourself reacting less with fear, that is a sign. Because those are changes of state, and state is cause, and cause is already the beginning of fulfillment. So do not be troubled if you do not see outer signs right away. Outer signs lag, the mirror lags, but the face has already changed if you have entered the state. Now I will speak to you gently about something else that often confuses people. Sometimes the bridge will include events that at first glance seem unfavorable. A person may lose a job and think, "I failed," yet that loss may be the first step on the bridge to a far better opportunity. A person may have a plan dissolve, and they think the law did not work. But the dissolving may be clearing space for a new plan that fits the end they have assumed. If you do not understand the bridge, you will panic and reverse your state. You will say, "See, it's getting worse," and you will return to fear, and fear will indeed create more to fear. But if you understand the bridge, you will not judge the unfolding. You will say calmly, "This too may be part of the bridge," and you will remain loyal to the end. So I caution you, do not judge while you are crossing. Do not demand that the bridge look pleasing at every step. The bridge exists to bring you to the end, not to satisfy your need for certainty at every moment. The end will satisfy you. The bridge is simply the unfolding. Now let me give you the greatest comfort of all. The bridge is built by a wisdom greater than your conscious planning. The subconscious is not a blind force. It is intelligent. It has access to connections and movements that your waking mind cannot see. It can stir people, shift timing, open doors, create coincidences that are not coincidences. It can bring to you the very thing you assumed through avenues you would never have guessed. This is why you must not dictate the how. Because your how is often limited by what you already know, and the subconscious is not limited to what you already know. It can bring you supply from what you have forgotten. It can bring you money from what you did not think mattered. It can bring you help from a stranger. It can bring you opportunity from a conversation that seems accidental. It can bring you relief through a chain of events that look ordinary, but are perfectly arranged. So trust it. Not as a superstition, as a law. Now I will repeat the mysterious line again. because it carries the truth of the bridge in one sentence. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. Yes, you will call it chance, but it will be the world obeying your new inner state, and because it comes clothed in normality, you may be tempted to miss it. You may think, that would have happened anyway, but it would not have happened in the same way if you had not changed the state. The bridge is always tailored to the end you have assumed. Now, let me soothe the anxious mind once more, because I know it well. It says, what if I miss the bridge? What if I overlook my opportunity? My friend, if you remain in the state, you cannot miss what belongs to that state. The bridge is not a fragile thread you must catch with frantic hands. It is a road that rises beneath you as you walk. If you keep walking as the one who is supplied, you will step naturally into the incidents that supply you. The only way to miss the bridge is to abandon the state and return to fear. So do not worry about missing anything. Simply remain loyal to the end. Remain loyal to the feeling of being provided. Remain loyal to the calm, of course, and you will find yourself on the bridge without even trying. Now, because you are listening for sleep, let me speak in a slower rhythm, so that these words can enter you without effort. If you do not see it today, it means nothing. If you do not feel a dramatic change tomorrow morning, it means nothing. If the outer world looks the same for a little while, it means nothing. The seed is alive beneath the soil. The bridge is forming beneath the surface. The mirror is catching up. So rest. Do not dig. Do not check. Do not strain. Rest in the knowing that the state you have planted must bear fruit. Now, in the next part, I will show you how to move through your waking hours without undoing what you have done at night. How to keep your mental diet clean, not in a rigid way, but in a gentle way, so that every inner word serves your new normal. Now, my friend, there is a delicate art that must be understood if you wish the seed you plant at night to grow into the harvest you desire. It is not complicated, but it is subtle. It is the art of not undoing, in the daylight, what you have accepted in the dark. For you see, the night is a soft chamber. In the night, the mind relaxes its arguments. In the night, the senses grow dim. In the night, you can slip into a new state like a garment and fall asleep in it. But then the morning comes, and with the morning comes the old habit of reaction. And reaction, my friend, is simply prayer in the wrong direction. Reaction is the mirror telling the face what to be. Reaction is the old state reaching up from yesterday and saying, come back, live here again. So the question is not, can you imagine at night? Many can. The question is, can you remain faithful to the state in the day without turning it into strain? And I tell you, you can, if you understand one thing. The daylight is not the time to fight. The daylight is the time to remember. You do not protect your state by clenching. You protect it by returning. Again and again. Gently, quietly, without drama. You protect it the way a mother protects a sleeping child, by not making noise, by not shaking the room, by not demanding proof that the child is resting. She simply keeps the room calm. Your state is like that sleeping child. It is growing. It is taking root. And your work in the day is not to dig it up, not to test it, not to interrogate it, but to keep the room calm. This is what I mean when I speak of the mental diet. And do not let that phrase sound harsh to you. I do not mean a rigid discipline that makes you anxious. I do not mean you must become frightened of every thought. That would only be another form of bondage. I mean something far simpler. You stop feeding yourself what you no longer wish to become. Because inner speech is food, and you are eating all day long. Some people eat fear every hour. They taste it in their conversations. They swallow it in their quiet conclusions. They chew it when they look at numbers. They sip it when they read the news. They take it into bed and fall asleep with it. And then they wonder why their life tastes bitter. But you, my friend, are learning to feed on something else. You are learning to feed on relief. You are learning to feed on safety. You are learning to feed on the quiet certainty of being supplied. And once you understand that your inner speech is food, The day becomes very simple. You do not need to make a war against the mind. You simply change what you eat. Now, let me take you through the day in scenes, because scenes are how the subconscious understands, and scenes are how you will remember when the moment comes. Imagine you wake in the morning. Perhaps you are still sleepy. Perhaps you reach for the day with a half-open mind, and the old habit tries to greet you. It tries to say, "What about money? What about today? What about the bills?" The habit is quick. It often speaks before you even sit up, and this is where most people lose their state. Not because the law has failed, but because they accept the old greeting as truth. So what do? You do not argue. You do not scold yourself. You do not say, "Oh no, I thought a fearful thought. Now everything is ruined." That would be superstition. That would be strain. That would be another way of feeding fear. Instead, you do something quiet. You take one breath. Not a dramatic breath, a natural breath. And as you exhale, you return to your new normal. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. You say it inwardly, the way you would smooth a wrinkled sheet, gently. Once, maybe twice. And you let your shoulders soften as you say it. You let the body agree with the words. You let the nervous system learn a new morning. And then you rise, not as one trying to get wealth, but as one who is learning to live from supply, not to get it, to be it. Not someday. Now the day begins. Perhaps you go into the kitchen. Perhaps you look at the table. Perhaps you notice the place where letters are placed, or papers, or notices. In the old state, you would glance and your chest would tighten before you even touched anything. You would anticipate pressure. You would brace. Now you will not pretend you do not see. You will simply refuse to take your state from what you see. You will take your state from what you have accepted at night. So you touch the paper with calm hands. Not because you are careless, because you are supplied. And if a fearful thought rises, what if it is bad news? You do not wrestle it. You return, softly, to the inner decree. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me, and you proceed. Now this may seem small, but it is everything, because the day is made of small moments, and each small moment is a vote. Each small moment is a seed. Each small moment either nourishes the new state or waters the old. So you learn to treat the day as a series of gentle returns. You are not trying to hold your state with clenched fists. You are returning to it like a home you love. Now imagine another scene. Later in the day, perhaps you open a letter, and it asks something of you. Perhaps it is a bill. Perhaps it is a notice. Perhaps it is a reminder of a payment. In the old state, this would have struck you like a blow. You would feel your stomach drop. You would feel that heat of worry. You would begin to calculate fear. Now you will notice something new. You will notice that the first sensation is simply habit. It is the body remembering the old training. So you do not obey it. You do not follow it into panic. You pause and you breathe. And you say inwardly, with quiet authority, not loud, not dramatic, simply true. This is not the cause. This is the echo. Then you return to the state. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. Now you may ask, but Neville, should I still pay the bill? Of course. The state does not make you foolish. It makes you calm. You do what is required without fear. You handle what is in front of you, but you do not let it define what is within you. You move as one who is guided. You move as one who is supported. You move as one who is supported. You move as one who is supplied. And in moving that way, you are walking the bridge of incidents without even knowing you are walking it. Because your calm changes everything. Your calm changes how you read the situation. Your calm changes how you speak to people. Your calm changes which ideas you notice. Your calm changes which doors you try. Your calm changes which help you allow. Fear closes. Calm opens. So the day becomes the place where you practice calm, not as a performance, as a naturalness. Now imagine, you must speak with someone, perhaps an employer, perhaps a clerk, perhaps a person in authority. In the old state, you would approach from the feeling of I am small. You would feel dependent. You would feel you must impress. You would feel you must beg. And because you would feel like a beggar, you would speak like one, even if your words were polite. The subconscious hears the state, not the speech. Now you do something different. Before you speak to anyone, you go inward for 1 second, just 1 second, and you remember the state you accepted the night before. You remember the normal. You do not say, I hope they help me. You say, I am already provided. You do not say, what if they refuse? You say, I am safely supplied. You do not say, I need their approval to be okay. You say, it is natural for me. And then you speak, not with aggression, with steadiness. And you will be astonished at how the world responds to steadiness. People may not know why, but they feel it. They sense it. They answer it. Because people are part of the mirror too. They reflect the state you carry. Now let me give you another scene that often disturbs people. You are with friends, or with family, or with someone close. The subject of money arises. Someone speaks in a fearful way. They say times are hard. They say everything is expensive. They say it's not easy. They speak as though worry is wisdom. In the old state, you would join them inwardly. You would agree with fear to belong. You would nod to lack, to feel safe socially. And in agreeing, you would plant more of the old state. But now, you do not have to argue with them. You do not have to preach. You do not have to correct anyone. You do not have to prove your understanding. You simply do not enter their state. You may listen kindly. You may respond gently. You may even say very little. But inwardly, you remain in your own dwelling. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. You do not fight them. You do not fight life. You remain. Because the one who remains in the end is the one who receives. Now here is something that will help you immensely. The day will test nothing but your loyalty to your state. The day does not test your worth. The day does not test your goodness. The day does not test whether you deserve wealth. Those are human inventions. The day simply offers you old echoes and asks, will you enter again? And you answer by what you feel, not by what you say aloud. You answer by the quiet return to relief. Now let me show you how this looks when doubt comes, because doubt comes like a whisper. It does not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a gentle question, is this working? When will it happen? Did I do it right? What if nothing changes? These questions are simply the old state trying to re-enter through the side door. So what do? You do not wrestle with the question. You do not debate it. You do not try to solve it. You return to the effect. You feel the effect. First, you allow relief now. You allow safety now. And the question dissolves, because questions belong to not yet, and you are no longer living there. So you breathe, and you return. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. Now in time, this becomes so natural that you do it without effort, like blinking, like swallowing. It becomes the new normal response. And when it becomes the new normal response, your life begins to look different, not because you forced the world, but because you stopped feeding the old world. Now I want to speak to you about one of the most common forms of sabotage, because it is so ordinary that people do not even see it as sabotage. They see it as realism. It is the habit of inner commentary. You look at something and you comment inwardly. This is bad. You see a delay and you comment. Of course. You hear a price and you comment. I can't. You remember a bill and you comment. I'm behind. These little comments are prayers. They are not neutral. They are seeds. And they are often spoken with more feeling than any deliberate imaginal act, because they are habitual and automatic. So they impress the subconscious deeply. Now you do not have to stop thoughts from arising. Thoughts arise. But you can stop feeding them with agreement. You can stop giving them your emotional signature. So when a negative commentary arises, you treat it like a stranger knocking at the door. You do not invite the stranger in. You do not fight the stranger. You simply do not open. You remain inside your house. And in your house, the atmosphere is, I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. Now let me show you in a scene. A bill arrives. Old commentary rises. This is too much. You breathe, you feel your shoulders drop. You say inwardly, I am already provided. And you proceed to handle the bill calmly. Another scene. A person doubts you. They say, that won't happen. Or they laugh at your confidence. Or they speak as though your hope is foolish. In the old state, you would defend yourself. You would try to convince them. You would argue. You would become tense, because their doubt would infect you. But now you understand, their doubt is only an echo of states. It has no authority unless you accept it. So you do not argue. You do not need to win the debate. You do not need to persuade anyone. You remain in your state. You might simply smile, kindly. You might say very little, but inwardly, you do not move. I am safely supplied. You do not prove, you remain. And the world will prove itself to you in time. Now, let me speak about another scene that is very common. You are walking, and you see something you want. Not luxury, something simple. Perhaps something you would enjoy. And the old habit says, you shouldn't, or you can't, or be careful. And sometimes that voice pretends to be wisdom, but it is actually fear. Now you are not asked to spend foolishly, but you are asked to remove fear from your decisions. You are asked to stop letting anxiety be your guide. So you pause, you breathe, you feel relief. You say inwardly, it is natural for me to be supported. And then you decide from calm, not from panic. Sometimes the calm decision is to buy. Sometimes the calm decision is to wait. But the important thing is that your decision is no longer rooted in the identity of lack. Because the identity of lack, even when it waits, waits in fear. The identity of supply, even when it waits, waits in peace. And peace is the state that creates. Now I want to show you something that will make this even easier. The daytime protection of your state is not a constant effort to think right. It is a constant returning to the feeling of being done. What does that feel like? It feels like a little inner sigh, a quiet, internal awe, a loosening. So throughout the day, when you notice tension, you practice one small act. You sigh inwardly, not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft internal release. And with that release, you remember, I am already provided. That's all. This is not work. This is relaxation. And because it is relaxation, it is powerful. Now the day has many small moments where you can do this. You stand in line. You sigh inwardly and return. You walk from one room to another. You sigh inwardly and return. You wash dishes. You sigh inwardly and return. You sit for a moment. You sigh inwardly and return. And each time you do, you are training the subconscious. You are making wealth normal, your constant climate. Because the subconscious learns not only from your nighttime scenes, it learns from what you return to all day. Now let me make this very clear, because it will soothe you. You will not be perfect. No one is. The old state will sometimes catch you. You will sometimes react. You will sometimes feel fear. You will sometimes fall into old inner speech. Do not make that a tragedy. Do not turn it into a verdict. Do not say, I ruined it. That is the old state trying to use guilt as a tool. Instead, you do the simplest, kindest thing. The moment you notice, you return. You return as you would return home after stepping outside. You do not punish yourself for leaving. You simply come back. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me, and in returning, you do something even more powerful than staying perfectly calm all day. You prove to the subconscious that you are the one in authority. You prove that the new state is not a fragile mood. It is a chosen dwelling. Now, for those who have lived many years and have built strong habits, this returning is the real practice, not a day of perfect thinking. The practice is the return. Now, I will tell you a small secret that helps many. When you feel the day trying to pull you into fear, do not say, I must not fear. That gives fear attention. It makes fear the center. Instead, simply say, I am safe. Safety is the opposite climate. Fear cannot remain long in the atmosphere of safety. So you might whisper inwardly, I am safe, and then I am supplied. And then it is natural, and the body will follow. Now you may also notice something subtle. The day is filled with inner conversations where you imagine outcomes. You imagine someone refusing you. You imagine a bill becoming worse. You imagine a problem growing. You imagine being judged. You imagine running out. These imaginings are usually unconscious, and they are very creative. So daytime protection is also the art of stopping the fearful imaginations before they become seeds, not by force, but by substitution. If you catch yourself imagining a refusal, replace it with acceptance. If you catch yourself imagining a burden, replace it with relief. If you catch yourself imagining loss, replace it with support. Again, not a long story. A small substitution. You might see, in a flash, yourself opening a letter and smiling, seeing settled. You might see, in a flash, yourself paying calmly. You might see, in a flash, yourself breathing easily. Then you move on. That flash is a seed, too. Now let me paint a longer day, so you can feel how natural this becomes. You rise in the morning. The old worry tries to greet you. You breathe and return. You move through your household tasks. A letter catches your eye. You feel a small tightening. You breathe and return. You speak to someone. They mention expenses. The old fear tries to join. You smile, remain kind, and return inwardly. You go about your work. An unexpected cost appears. The mind starts to run. You pause for a moment. Not outwardly, but inwardly. You soften. You return. You continue the day. Perhaps you are tired. Perhaps you are tempted to say, it's always like this. But you catch it. You return. And by evening, something subtle has happened. You have lived one day without feeding the old state constantly. You have not uprooted the seed. You have not watered fear. You have fed relief. That day alone begins to shift the direction of your life. Then you repeat tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. And what was once an effort becomes your nature. Now I will speak to you about something that will bring great peace. You do not need to tell anyone what you are doing. You do not need to defend your practice. You do not need to convince people. In my experience, those who speak too much about their desire often do so because they are still seeking reassurance. They want others to confirm what they have not yet accepted within. But when you have accepted the state, you do not need reassurance. You live quietly, you let the bridge unfold. So do not argue, do not announce, do not demand agreement. Remain, and let life reveal obedience. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where others speak pessimistically, you can remain gentle and kind while refusing to enter their state. This is a great art. You do not harden. You do not become cold. You do not become superior. You simply remain inwardly supplied. It is possible to be compassionate without sharing fear. It is possible to listen without accepting doom. It is possible to comfort others without leaving your own state. So you listen, you soothe, you respond kindly, and inwardly you remain. I am already provided. And this is not selfish, it is healing. Because when you remain in a higher state, you often lift others without trying. People feel calm near calm. People soften near steadiness. They do not know why, but they respond. Now, at some point in the day, you may be tempted to check for proof. You may feel the urge to look for a sign, to inspect the mirror, to see if anything has changed yet. Remember what I told you. Checking is the habit of not yet. So when the urge to check arises, you treat it like any other old habit. You do not condemn it. You return. You say inwardly, it is done, and you feel relief. You do not need to see the bridge being built to know it is being built. The seed does not need to see the roots growing to be alive. So you resist the urge to check, not with force, but with trust. And if you check anyway, do not punish yourself. Simply return afterward. The returning is what matters. Now, because you are listening for sleep, I will begin to slow again, so that this can settle like a calm instruction beneath your awareness. In the day, you will meet echoes, you will meet old evidence, you will meet old habits. They do not mean anything. They are only yesterday speaking. Your only task is to remain in your new normal. Your only task is to return. A bill appears. You breathe, you return. I am supplied. A doubt appears. You breathe, you return. I am provided. Someone speaks fear. You breathe, you return. It is natural for me. And the world will rearrange itself. Not because you fought it, but because you stopped agreeing with the old story. This is how you protect the seed. This is how you keep the soil undisturbed. This is how you allow the bridge to form. And now in what remains, I will bring you into quiet proofs, small stories, and living demonstrations, not to convince you by argument, but to strengthen your faith, so that you may rest more deeply and plant more confidently each night. Let me give you, my friend, a few quiet proofs, not proofs in the sense of argument, for argument never convinces the deeper mind, but proofs in the way a lamp proves there is light by simply shining. These are not meant to excite you. They are meant to steady you. They are meant to let your heart relax into the naturalness of this law. For there is something the soul understands, even when the reasoning mind hesitates. When you hear a pattern repeated in living experience, something in you begins to say, this is not chance. This is order. And remember, I am not asking you to accept anything because I say it. I am only showing you what I have watched, again and again, in ordinary lives, quiet people, practical people, people who were not seeking fantasy, but seeking relief. The law never comes with fireworks. It comes with naturalness. It comes clothed in the garments of everyday life. And that is why many miss it. They imagine fulfillment must look dramatic, yet it arrives as though it had always been on its way, as though the world simply turned a corner and there it was. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. I remember a woman who came to me burdened, not with laziness, not with foolishness, but with the quiet fatigue that comes from carrying responsibility too long. She had lived with a kind of constant pressure, the sort that sits behind the eyes and tightens the breath without announcing itself. She had a debt that troubled her, and it was not the debt alone that troubled her, but the meaning she had attached to it, the feeling of being trapped, the feeling of being behind, the feeling of always having to catch up. Now this woman did not speak like a dreamer. She spoke like someone who had tried. She had managed where she could. She had cut where she could. She had worried where she could not help worrying, and her worry had become normal to her. It was like a familiar coat she wore, even in bed. And I asked her a question, not to challenge her, but to lead her inward. If this were handled, I said, how would you feel? At first she looked at me as though I had asked her to pretend, but I explained, very quietly, that we were not pretending. We were changing the cause. We were not asking life to do something for us. We were entering the state that would exist if life had already done it. So I asked her to do something very small, something so small that the mind could not call it heroic. I asked her, as she approached sleep, to imagine a single scene implying the end was already accomplished, not a long drama, not the entire process, only the end. She chose a scene that suited her nature. She imagined herself opening a letter and seeing the words, settled. She imagined the simple stamp, paid in full. And then she did the most important thing. She did not celebrate. She did not force excitement. She allowed the relief. She let her shoulders drop as though a weight had been lifted. She let her breath deepen as though the fear had ended. She let her chest soften. She let her face smooth. And she whispered inwardly, not as a beggar, but as one who already possessed the fact. It is done. Night after night, she did this. Not with strain, but with the calm repetition of someone learning a new normal. Now from the outside, nothing looked different at first. The same world remained. The same streets, the same letters, the same routine. And this is where the old mind would normally grow impatient. It would say, nothing has changed. But she was learning not to measure life by the surface. Instead, she began to notice something inwardly. She began to feel less hunted by the day. She began to feel that money was not a monster waiting in the shadows. She began to feel a quiet sense that things were being handled, even before she could see how. Then one day, something ordinary happened. So ordinary that most would dismiss it. A letter arrived. Not a miraculous letter written in gold, but a simple piece of paper, the sort that comes every day. It was from a place she had not expected. It concerned a matter she had nearly forgotten. There was a small adjustment, a correction, something that had been misapplied long ago, and now was being rectified. The result was not a theatrical fortune. It was exactly what she needed. The burden eased, the debt reduced, a path opened where she had seen only a wall. And when she spoke to me later, she did not say, "I saw angels," or "the heavens shook." She said something much more telling. She said, "It came so naturally, I almost missed it. But when it came, I felt the same relief I had been practicing at night." Do you see the beauty of that? The outer event did not create her relief. Her relief created the outer event, or its equivalent. The law of reversibility moved. She had felt the effect first. The world had to provide the cause that justified the effect, and the event did not come as a miracle from outside. It came as the natural bridge of incidents. It came dressed in ordinary life. Yet it was not ordinary at all. It was obedience to her new inner state. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. Now let me tell you of a man who came to me with a different kind of trouble. He was not drowning in bills, but he was stuck in a narrow passage, the kind of passage where the mind begins to feel life has become small. He had work, yes, but it did not fit him. He felt overlooked. He felt as though his efforts were not recognized. He felt as though he was always trying to prove his value, and the proving had exhausted him. He believed, as many do, that his future depended on what others decided. He believed his security depended on another man's approval. He believed opportunity was something granted from the outside. And because he believed that, he carried himself inwardly as dependent, as though life were a gatekeeper, and he must beg at the gate. So I spoke to him of the mirror. I told him, "You cannot change the mirror first. You must change the face." And I asked him to do something that did not involve writing letters or pleading for promotion. I asked him to enter the state of being valued as normal, not as a hope, but as an identity. I asked him, before sleep, to feel the simple dignity of being the kind of man who is recognized and rewarded. He chose a scene that was quiet, almost too quiet. He imagined a friend shaking his hand and saying, "I'm so pleased for you. It's wonderful how things have opened for you." That was all. A handshake, a sentence, a tone of respect. And then he did something that mattered even more than the scene. He allowed the feeling to become normal. He allowed the handshake to feel like memory, not imagination. He allowed the respect to feel like something he already lived with. He allowed his body to accept it as familiar. In the day, he made one change. Not an outer campaign, an inner loyalty. When he found himself thinking, "They never notice me," he returned inwardly to the new state. "I am valued. It is natural for me to be recognized." He did not argue with anyone. He did not demand. He did not preach. He simply remained. Now life began to move in its own way. First, something small changed. The way people spoke to him. He noticed a different tone. It was not dramatic. It was subtle. A little more respect, a little more attention, a little more ease. This alone was proof that the mirror was already beginning to shift. Then, an opportunity came. Not through the door he expected. It was not the direct path his reasoning mind would have drawn on paper. It came through a casual introduction, a conversation that seemed unimportant at the time. Someone mentioned a need. Someone mentioned a vacancy. Someone asked if he might be interested. And because he was now living in the state of being valued, he did not shrink. He did not feel like an outsider. He did not feel like he was begging for a chance. He felt it was natural. He felt, of course, this belongs to me. He spoke calmly. He moved with quiet confidence. He did not strain. Within a short time, he found himself offered a position, not merely a small improvement, but a true shift. Better pay, better conditions, better respect. And when he received it, he said something that reveals the law perfectly. He said, "It feels like this was always meant to happen. It feels as though the world simply turned in my favor." And that is exactly how it feels when the bridge completes. It feels natural. It feels as though it could not have been otherwise. But it could have been otherwise. If he had remained in the old state, the outer world would have continued to mirror dependence. It would have continued to mirror being overlooked. It would have continued to mirror the story of not chosen, but he changed the story. He entered the state. He made it normal, and the world obeyed. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. Now let me tell you a third story, because it touches something many do not consider, and yet it governs an enormous part of financial life: how other people treat you in matters of money and opportunity. Many people believe that other people are independent causes. They believe that if others are unkind, if others are unfair, if others are stingy, if others overlook them, then that is simply the nature of those people. They do not realize that much of what they receive from others is the reflection of their own inner assumptions, assumptions about themselves, assumptions about what they deserve, assumptions about how life works for them. I have said for years, and I will say again, there is no one to change but self. This is not a harsh statement, it is a liberating one. For if others are truly the cause, you are trapped. But if the cause is in you, you are free. There was a woman older, with a quiet strength about her, who came to me not because she wanted to be rich in some theatrical way, but because she wanted dignity. She felt that life had placed her always in the position of asking for understanding, asking for help, asking for consideration, and she was tired of asking. She had family matters that involved money, small inheritances, responsibilities, arrangements, and she felt, in her own words, "They treat me as though I do not matter, as though I am always the one who must accept less." Now see what she was saying. She was not only describing them, she was revealing her own state. I am the one who must accept less. That was the identity. That was the inner garment. And life, being faithful, gave her more mirrors of less. So I did not tell her to argue with her family. I did not tell her to demand. Demanding without inner change is still begging in disguise. I told her to change the state from which she met them. I asked her to enter the feeling of being respected as normal, to enter the feeling of being considered, to enter the feeling of being valued. And I asked her to revise a particular memory, a conversation that had stung her deeply, a moment where she felt dismissed. At night, as she grew drowsy, she replayed that conversation, but she changed it. She heard a different tone. She heard them speak kindly. She heard them say, "Of course we will do what is fair." She heard an apology that had never been spoken. She heard respect, and she allowed herself to feel the relief of being honored. Then she fell asleep in that feeling. In the day, when old resentment rose, she did not feed it. She did not rehearse arguments in her mind. She did not imagine future conflict. She returned to the state, "I am respected. It is natural for me." She kept her inner speech clean, not rigidly, but lovingly, like one who refuses to drink bitter water. Now, something remarkable happened, and it happened quietly. When the next conversation arose, the tone was different, not because she forced it, but because she was different. She did not walk into the room expecting dismissal. She did not carry the old bracing. She did not have the sharpness of one preparing for battle. She had steadiness. She had dignity. She had the quiet calm of someone who is accustomed to being treated well. And the world responded. One person softened. Another listened. Another offered what had not been offered before. It was not a sudden theatrical reversal. It was a gradual rearrangement of behavior, like ice melting in warm air. She later told me, "It felt like they changed, but I know now it was me. I no longer entered the room as the one who must accept less. Do you see the law? It is not that she manipulated others. It is that she changed the state that others were reflecting, and the mirror responded. Now, why do I tell you these stories? Because they show you the law in three directions: money as relief, opportunity as recognition, and relationships as mirrors of state. They show you that the law is not confined to one channel. It is not a single trick. It is a structure of reality itself. It is consciousness selecting a state and life, organizing itself around that selection. And notice something else. None of these stories required frantic action. None required dramatic rituals. None required endless struggle. The inner act came first, the state, then the bridge formed, then the outer changed. This is how it works. This is why I say, you do not need to chase. You need to consent. Now, because you are listening for sleep, let me bring the tone back to softness. Let me let these stories settle, not as entertainment, but as reassurance. If you have been worried that you are too late, remember, the state is always now. You are never too late to change the state. If you have been worried that your past has sealed you, remember, revision changes the past's authority and the present follows. If you have been worried that life is random, remember, what you call chance is often the bridge of incidents unseen. You will call it coincidence, but it will be obedience. Now, do not feel pressure to make something happen tomorrow. Do not feel pressure to watch the world like a hawk. Do not feel pressure to prove anything to anyone. The law does not require your strain. All it requires is your inner acceptance. So tonight, as you drift further, let one thing be enough. Return to the feeling of being provided. Let your body soften. Let your breath widen. Let your inner speech become calm. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. Let that be the quiet truth you carry into sleep. Because what you carry into sleep becomes the instruction, and the instruction becomes the world. And in what remains, I will lift your eyes once more to the deeper prize, not to take you away from money, but to free you from worshipping money, so that you may be supplied without fear, and live without the old tightness. For the greatest wealth is not a sum. It is the discovery of the source within you that can never be exhausted. My friend, you have stayed with me a long while, and that alone tells me something about you. Most people do not remain long enough to let a new state sink in. They listen for a moment, then return to the old noise. But you stayed. And in staying, you have already done the rare thing. You have given your own mind permission to soften. Now, do not make this complicated as we end. Do not turn it into a final effort. Let it be simple. Let it be gentle. Let it be the quiet sealing of what has already been planted. You came here because you wanted wealth, and you may receive it. But I want you to remember what I have shown you. The true work is not chasing money. The true work is changing what is normal in you. For the subconscious does not respond to wants. It responds to what feels natural. And when wealth becomes natural, the outer world has no choice but to reorganize itself around that naturalness. So tonight, do not look for signs. Do not measure your progress by tomorrow morning's evidence. If you see nothing at first glance, it means nothing. The seed is alive beneath the surface. The bridge is forming quietly. And what you will later call coincidence will be the world obeying the state you have accepted. Now, as you go to sleep, do not carry the old conversation into the dark. Do not rehearse worry. Do not relive fear. Do not take the name I am and join it to struggle. Tonight, you will take the name gently and you will clothe it in safety. And here is what I want you to whisper inwardly as you drift, softly, without strain, as a lullaby rather than a demand. I am already provided. Let your shoulders drop. I am safely supplied. Let your breath widen. It is natural for me. Let your body accept it as ordinary. You do not say this to force life. You say this because life is already responding to what you accept. You say this because you are teaching your subconscious a new normal. And what becomes normal becomes inevitable. If a memory of fear rises, do not fight it. Revise it softly. Let it end in handled. Let it end in paid. Let it end in dignity and relief. And then let it go. You are not here to carry old burdens into the future. You are here to be free. Now rest. Let the body grow heavy. Let the mind grow quiet. Let sleep come when it comes. And if you wake in the night, do not reach for worry. Reach for the state. Whisper again, gently, as though you are returning home. I am already provided. I am safely supplied. It is natural for me. And then let yourself drift back into the feeling of relief. This is the secret. Not to get it, but to be it. Not someday, but now. Not with strain, but with consent. So I leave you with this final comfort. You are not trying to persuade the world. You are changing the face, and the mirror must follow. You are not building the bridge. You are letting the bridge build itself. You are not begging for wealth. You are letting wealth become normal. Few people will ever understand how simple this truly is. But you do not need the world to understand. You only need to live it. Now, my friend, sleep, and sleep as the one who is already provided. Sleep as the one who is safely supplied. Sleep as the one for whom it is natural. Good night.